Chapter 891. At that moment, Lu Shidi was shocked. He finally knew why Yi Xian didn't appear. It wasn't that Yi Xian didn't appear but that he had gone to the Worldwide Academy. Now that there was no one at the Worldwide Academy, who could stop Yi Xian? More importantly, the Worldwide Book Room was at the Worldwide Academy. If Yi Xian had the key to the prison tower, he might be able to open the Worldwide Book Room. Once it fell into Yi Xian's hands, Lu Shidi didn't dare to think about it. At that moment, all the Worldwide Academy experts rushed back to the Worldwide Academy. Yan Tian, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. They ran just like that? Below, Seven suddenly said, "Leave them here." The moment she said this, she tapped the ground and turned into a sword light that charged into the sky. When he saw that, Yan Tian's expression changed. Retreat. Very quickly, everyone retreated. Fu Wenzong naturally wouldn't give up this chance and chased after them. One had to say that Fu Wenzong's fighting was really interesting. He just smashed talismans like crazy. He was just so rich. However, Yan Tian and the others fled really quickly and Fu Wenzong and the others weren't able to stop all of them. In the sky, Lu Yong suddenly said, "We can't chase them. Head to the Worldwide Academy." When she heard Lu Yong's words, Seven stopped. Lu Yong said, "Little Ancestor has headed to the Worldwide Academy and is in danger. We have to rush to the Worldwide Academy." Seven nodded. "Let's go." The moment she said this, she turned into a sword light and disappeared into the horizon. Lu Yong suddenly said, "Bring all the talismans. Take out all that Fu Wenzong has accumulated. If Little Ancestor is in danger, then blow up the Worldwide Academy." Very quickly, all the experts from Fu Wenzong rushed to the Worldwide Academy. The entire sect was out. At that moment, numerous people were shocked. Fu Wenzong was risking his life. Worldwide Academy. Under Lian Xian's instructions, Yi Xian quietly arrived at the Worldwide Academy. After he entered a grand hall, he walked along the secret Dao Yi path in the grand hall. He used the immeasurable sword, so no one noticed him along the way. However, when he reached a door at the end of the secret passage, a mirror on the wall suddenly shone on him. Yi Xian's expression immediately changed. He knew that he had been discovered. Yi Xian casually waved his hand and put the mirror away. Then, he sped up and quickly passed through the door. Not far behind the door sat an old man. The old man wore a loose robe and had a long beard. He supported himself with a walking stick and just sat there quietly without any signs of life. On either side of him were rows of bookshelves. On the bookshelves were all sorts of ancient texts. Behind the old man was a door of light. Above the door of light was the seal of a tower. Yi Xian glanced at it. It was the same seal as the one in the prison pagoda. Clearly, behind this door was the legendary world dimensional book house. Then, who was this old man in front of him? Yi Xian asked in his heart, "Miss Lian Xian?" Lian Xian said in a deep voice, "I don't know this person." Yi Xian glanced at the old man. "Do you think he will hit me?" Lian Xian said, "You can try." Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Boom! An explosion suddenly sounded. The next moment, Yi Xian returned to his original position. And the old man was still sitting there. Where he stood, Yi Xian's expression turned ugly. This old man's strength was unfathomable. At this moment, Lian Xian suddenly said, "Retreat." Without any hesitation, Yi Xian turned and left. Because he had been discovered. He knew that if he stayed here, he would definitely die when the experts from the Worldwide Academy rushed back. He couldn't be greedy. And the old man didn't chase after him. Soon, Yi Xian arrived outside. At this moment, he sensed countless powerful auras in the distant sky. Yi Xian didn't hesitate and was about to flee. At this moment, an angry shout suddenly resounded from above the clouds. "Where do you think you're going?" As soon as the voice finished speaking, an ancient book suddenly flew down from the sky. The next moment, a resplendent white light erupted from the ancient book. This white light enveloped the entire worldwide academy and shone on where Yi Xian was. And the space he was in started to tremble violently. At the same time, dozens of powerful auras enveloped him. Yi Xian's expression sank. He had been discovered. He had just woken up and was about to use the teleportation talisman when a mysterious force suddenly appeared in the surrounding space. This force directly suppressed the space he was in. Just as he was about to use the spatial Dao law, Lu Shidi and the others appeared in front of him. Along with them were dozens of super experts from the worldwide academy. These people surrounded Yi Xian tightly. Yi Xian asked in his heart, "Miss Lian Xian, what should we do?" Lian Xian said, "Surrender." Yi Xian was speechless. Lian Xian added, "Perhaps you can reason with them." Yi Xian thought for a moment and felt that this method was feasible. He was about to speak when Lu Shidi suddenly said, "Kill him. Don't hold back. Everyone, attack together." As soon as he finished speaking, the flute in his hands suddenly transformed into a green ray of light that shot explosively towards Yi Xian. Lin Xiaoshu, who was next to him, also suddenly made a move. He opened his palm, and a thick book appeared in his palm. In the next moment, the ancient book suddenly flipped open, and pages flew out. These pages were like blades that flew towards Yi Xian. One blade after another, extremely sharp. Meanwhile, the surrounding experts from the worldwide academy attacked as well. Yi Xian was stunned. They didn't even give him a chance to speak. He naturally couldn't resist so many people attacking at the same time. However, at this moment, he had to resist even if he couldn't. Yi Xian's body suddenly ignited. It wasn't soul ignition, but he had devoured a drop of ancestral heavenly dragon blood, strengthening his body. When the dragon blood entered his body, Yi Xian's body underwent an earth-shattering change. Scales suddenly appeared all over his body. At this moment, Yi Xian felt like his entire body was filled with boundless energy, but it still wasn't enough. So, he immediately circulated the energy of the earth, and it instantly converged throughout his body. Yi Xian suddenly drew his sword and swung it forward. Bang! A world-shaking explosion suddenly resounded. Yi Xian retreated madly, and the scales throughout his body actually started to crack inch by inch. When he was 3 kilometers away, all the scales on his body had fallen off, and then his body started to crack apart. When he finally stopped moving, countless rifts had appeared all over his body, and some of the rifts were so deep that even his internal organs could be seen. Even though he'd survived it, he was in an extremely terrible state. His entire body had changed beyond recognition, and he didn't seem like a human anymore. However, the expressions of Lu Shidi and the others grew even more solemn. Yi Xian had actually resisted their joint attack. Was that normal? Of course it wasn't. Lu Shidi stared fixedly at Yi Xian. At this moment, he finally understood why Chen Tian had been constantly targeting Yi Xian. If Yi Xian was allowed to grow, then he would definitely become a huge threat to the academy. He was truly too monstrous. Lu Shidi was just about to attack again when a group of experts suddenly rushed over from afar. It was Shen Xinghe, Fu Wenzong, and the other experts. Shen Xinghe instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Yi Xian was still alive. He'd been afraid that he would be too late. Fortunately, Yi Xian was still alive. Lu Shidi gazed at Yi Xian from afar, and the killing intent in his eyes wasn't concealed at all. Meanwhile, Shen Xinghe spoke abruptly, "Young martial ancestor, you leave first." Leave first? Yi Xian shook his head. He knew that the worldwide academy wouldn't let them leave today. Yi Xian took out a bottle of life spring water and drank it. Soon, his body began to recover at an extremely fast speed. Meanwhile, rays of white light suddenly shot into the sky from all around the worldwide academy. The white light formed a huge light shield that enveloped the surroundings, and more experts from the worldwide academy appeared in the surroundings. Obviously, they didn't intend to let Yi Xian and the others leave. Below, Shen Xinghe's face was expressionless. "Young martial ancestor, you leave first." Lu Yong wanted to say something but hesitated. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Old Shen, don't even think about leaving." Shen Xinghe looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian had recovered about 50% to 60%. Yi Xian smiled and said, "They won't let us leave. We only have a single choice now, and it's to fight them to the death." Lu Yong nodded, just as young martial ancestor said, "We have no way out now. If we lose this battle, then I, Fu Wenzong, will vanish from this world, and I won't have any chance to make a comeback. So, we can only fight." As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian, young martial ancestor, "Can you still fight?" Yi Xian smiled, "Of course." As soon as he finished speaking, he withdrew another drop of ancestral heavenly dragon's blood and drank it. In next to no time, a strand of formidable energy converged within his entire body. This energy was intoxicating. Yi Xian slowly clenched his right fist. He raised his head to look at Lu Shidi, and then he grinned, "Dean Lu, do you dare to fight me?" A declaration of war. Everyone looked at Yi Xian when they heard this. Yi Xian intends to challenge Lu Shidi? In midair, Lu Shidi gazed at Yi Xian. He was slightly surprised because he hadn't expected that Yi Xian would challenge him. In all fairness, Yi Xian was absolutely not a match for him. Regardless of whether it was combat experience or cultivation, Yi Xian was absolutely not a match for him. However, Yi Xian had done it. There's something fishy going on. Lu Shidi shook his head and smiled, "All right." He knew that there was something fishy going on, but he still accepted the challenge. It was a problem of morale. If he didn't fight, then it would severely affect their morale. Moreover, why would he have to fear Yi Xian? In midair, Lu Shidi walked slowly towards Yi Xian, and he grinned, "Yi Xian, I'm very curious about exactly how." Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished. In the blink of an eye, a blood-red prisoner character suddenly appeared above Lu Shidi, and then a strand of formidable energy instantly enveloped Lu Shidi. At the same time, a ray of light suddenly arrived in front of Lu Shidi, and another formidable energy enveloped Lu Shidi as soon as it arrived. The sword domain. At the instant that the sword domain appeared, Lu Shidi's expression finally changed. At this moment, he sensed the aura of death. Right at this moment, Lin Xiaoshu suddenly attacked. He tossed out an ancient book and smashed it against the blood-red prisoner character. Bang! The prisoner character trembled violently, and it was at this moment that Lu Shidi was blasted 300 m away. However, he'd lost his right hand. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. Meanwhile, Yi Xian glanced at Lin Xiaoshu and Lu Shidi, and then he spat, "Tui." Shameless. Everyone was speechless. P.S. Have any readers gone on a blind date? What should I pay attention to when going on a blind date? Besides that, what should I tell them if they ask about my income? Should I tell them the truth or exaggerate a little? Chapter 892. At that moment, the faces of the worldwide academy powerhouses in the field were a little ugly. They had agreed on a one-on-one fight, but Lin Xiaoshu had suddenly attacked. That was really a little disgraceful. Lin Xiaoshu was silent. He also knew that it was disgraceful to do so, but he had to attack just now because if he hadn't, Lu Shidi might have died. Lu Shidi's strength was far superior to Yi Xian's, and he was caught off guard by Yi Xian. If he was killed just like that, it wouldn't be worth it. Therefore, he attacked. In the distance, Lu Shidi's face was frighteningly gloomy at that moment. He really didn't expect that he would almost be killed by Yi Xian. He didn't look down on Yi Xian. On the contrary, he valued Yi Xian very much. However, Yi Xian's sword just now was far beyond his expectations. Yi Xian used several kinds of power in that sword, and each of them could be said to be able to destroy heaven and earth. At that moment, Yi Xian suddenly chuckled and said, "Is this the so-called one-on-one fight?" As he said that, he glanced at the worldwide academy powerhouses in the field and laughed. "This is a one-on-one fight? Haha. In the field, Fu Wenzong and the other powerhouses all had disdainful expressions. Yi Xian's realm was much lower than Lu Shidi's. Even so, the worldwide academy still wanted to fight 2 against 1. This kind of behavior was really despicable. In the air, the expressions of the worldwide academy powerhouses were also extremely ugly to look at. They wanted to fight back, but found that there was no way to do so. Indeed, they were the ones who were being unreasonable. At that moment, Lu Shidi, who was not far away, suddenly said, "Yi Xian, I underestimated you." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Since you underestimated me, then the 2 of you can come at me together." Lu Shidi looked at Yi Xian. "I'll lower my realm to fight you, and I'll lower my realm by 1 realm." As soon as he said that, his realm suddenly plummeted. Soon, he directly became a cosmos realm. Lu Shidi looked at Yi Xian. "Again?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "When you're about to lose, you let someone else do it?" Lu Shidi said, "Don't worry. This time, no one will make a move." Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, "How about this? For the sake of absolute fairness, we won't utilize our profound energy, divine abilities, or any divine treasures, and will compete in basic cultivation. All right?" Lu Shidi was about to speak when Lin Xiaoshu suddenly said, "I'm afraid it's a trap." Yi Xian laughed and said, "I am, ah." Lin Xiaoshu looked at Yi Xian. "Showy and dirty tricks. He's not a good person." Yi Xian asked, "Are you a good person?" Lin Xiaoshu was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand and said, "I don't want to fight a war of words with you. It's just a matter of whether you want to fight or not." Lin Xiaoshu was about to speak when Lu Shidi suddenly said, "Xiaoshu, don't interfere." Lin Xiaoshu wanted to speak but hesitated. Lu Shidi smiled and said, "Or, in your heart, I'm really not as good as him." Lin Xiaoshu didn't say anything and retreated to the side. In the distance, Yi Xian opened his palm, and a sword appeared in his hand. This sword wasn't the executing heaven sword, but a very ordinary sword. Lu Shidi opened his palm, and there was a green flute in his hand. "This is an ordinary long bamboo flute." Yi Xian nodded and said, "Then let's start." As he said this, he seemed to think of something and suddenly looked at Shen Xinghe and the others on the right. "Seniors, no matter what happens later, don't do anything. Don't be like others. We, the people of Fu Wenzong, even if we die, we must die with integrity." Hearing Yi Xian's words, the blood of the Fu Wenzong powerhouses in the field suddenly boiled. "Shen Xinghe, this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page." Suddenly, he laughed and said, "Good job, little grandmaster. We, the Fu Wenzong, are proud of you." After that, he looked at Lu Shidi who was opposite him. Lu Shidi smiled and said, "Don't worry, no one in the Worldwide Academy will help me." As he said this, he looked at Lin Xiaoshu and said, "I can die, but don't let others look down on the academy." After a moment of silence, Lin Xiaoshu nodded. Lu Shidi looked at Yi Xian and said, "Let's begin." Yi Xian stood with his sword in hand and did not make a move, using silence to stop the enemy. In the distance, Lu Shidi also did not make a move. Because of what happened before, he did not dare to underestimate Yi Xian. This young man before him really had the ability to kill him. Just like that, the 2 of them were in a deadlock. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly said in his heart, "Miss Lian Xian, this person before me and Chen Yimeng are both headmasters, but I feel that this person is not as strong as Chen Yimeng." He still remembered that Chen Yimeng's strength could be said to completely crush him. Lian Xian said softly, "Firstly, this person before you is not weak. He was careless and did not guard against you, so you killed him when he was least expecting it. If he was prepared, you would not have been able to hurt him. Secondly, among the headmasters, there are strong and weak ones. Chen Yimeng's strength is only second to Wen Xiu's among the headmasters. Also, this person before you is not weak. In my opinion, your chances of winning are less than 20%. However, you are sneaky, so I have decided to give you a bonus. You have at least a 40% chance of winning. Sneaky. Yi Xian was speechless. To think that he was such a person in Lian Xian's heart. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian looked at Lu Shidi, who was opposite him. This battle was going to be a tough one. At this moment, Lu Shidi suddenly walked toward Yi Xian. Seeing this, everyone looked at Lu Shidi. Lu Shidi walked very slowly, as if he was taking a stroll. He walked slowly toward Yi Xian with a calm smile on his face. Not far away, Shaoqi frowned slightly. Force. Lu Shidi was using an invisible force to suppress Yi Xian. He wanted to force Yi Xian to make the first move, or crush Yi Xian with his aura. Shaoqi looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian naturally knew Lu Shidi's goal, but he did not make a move. Lu Shidi was getting closer and closer to him, forcing him to make a move. Yi Xian still did not make a move. When Lu Shidi was 6 feet away from Yi Xian suddenly walked toward Lu Shidi. He held the sword in his hand calmly. Just like that, the two of them got closer and closer. When they were 5 feet apart, Lu Shidi suddenly smiled. You are really patient. Then let me go first. As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to make a move. But at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly charged forward and slashed at him with his sword. It had to be said that this slash was extremely good, and the timing was very accurate. Unfortunately, in his opinion, this slash was not a threat to him. Under everyone's gaze, Lu Shidi suddenly held his flute and pushed forward. He was confident in his strength. At this moment, the light sword in Yi Xian's hand was suddenly replaced by a heavy iron sword. Boom! As soon as Lu Shidi reacted, he retreated more than 10 feet away. Before he could stop, a flying sword suddenly slashed at him. This was not a sword driven by qi, but a flying sword driven by pure physical strength. Lu Shidi narrowed his eyes and blocked with his flute. Bang! The flying sword was directly blocked. At this moment, Yi Xian had already appeared in front of Lu Shidi. He held the heavy sword with both hands and slashed down. Although he did not use Xian Qi, this slash was still extremely heavy. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page, physical strength. At this moment, Lu Shidi understood why Yi Xian sealed his Xian Qi to fight with him. It was because Yi Xian's physical body was strong enough. Without thinking too much, Lu Shidi suddenly attacked. Bang! Yi Xian returned to his original position. After he stopped, he waved his hands and the heavy sword and light sword returned to his hands. Yi Xian looked up at Lu Shidi. In that instant, Lu Shidi's attack was faster than his. Lu Shidi looked at Yi Xian. Without any nonsense, he suddenly opened his palm and pointed lightly. Qi! The flute in his hands suddenly turned into a green light and flew out. Although he did not use Xian Qi, the flute's speed was like a bolt of lightning. Faster than his flying sword. In the distance, Yi Xian blocked with his sword. Bang! Yi Xian's arms trembled violently and he retreated. In the process of retreating, Lu Shidi suddenly appeared in front of him. The next moment, Lu Shidi punched at his head. The punch was like thunder. Yi Xian did not dodge the punch. He turned his left wrist and stabbed forward with his sword. This stab was aimed at Lu Shidi's chest. A life for a life. Lu Shidi frowned slightly. He did not expect this. He did not choose to exchange his life with Yi Xian because, in his opinion, his strength crushed Yi Xian. Exchanging his life with Yi Xian was a very stupid thing to do. Lu Shidi retracted his hand and pressed down. Bang! Yi Xian's sword was pressed to the ground, and at this moment, Yi Xian's body suddenly collided with him. Lu Shidi blocked with his left hand. Bang! With an explosion, Lu Shidi took a few steps back. At this moment, a heavy sword slashed down from above his head. The sword fell, and the sound of air being torn resounded. At this moment, Lu Shidi gently moved his fingers and a green light suddenly blasted at Yi Xian's chest. Bang! Yi Xian was directly sent flying. The moment he flew out, Lu Shidi, who was in the distance, suddenly took a quick step forward. With this step, he came directly in front of Yi Xian and punched Yi Xian's face. Yi Xian almost instinctively slashed forward with his sword. The fist and the sword collided. Bang! Yi Xian retreated again, and as soon as he stopped, a green light was already in front of him. It was that flute again. Yi Xian took a small step back with his sword in hand. Then he thrust his sword forward. This thrust directly stabbed the flute. Bang! Yi Xian's iron sword cracked, and at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Almost at the same time, the light sword in Yi Xian's hand was replaced by a heavy sword. He held the sword with both hands and slashed. Bang! With a muffled sound, a figure retreated more than 10 feet away. It was Lu Shidi. As soon as Lu Shidi stopped, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of him, and Yi Xian slashed down with his sword. Right at this moment, a sudden change occurred. A powerful force suddenly swept out from Lu Shidi's body, and this force instantly enveloped Yi Xian. At the sight of this, the expressions of Fu Wenzong and the other experts changed drastically. Lu Shidi utilized his profound energy. Not far away, Yi Xian hadn't even reacted when the sword in his hand was seized by Lu Shidi. Then, Lu Shidi took the opportunity to stab his sword into Yi Xian's abdomen, and he grinned. "Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" End of this chapter. Chapter 893. The eyes of Shen Xinghe and the others almost split open when they saw Lu Shidi stab his sword into Yi Xian's stomach. On the other hand, the experts of the Worldwide Academy were stunned as well. They hadn't expected that Lu Shidi would suddenly utilize profound energy. Even Lin Xiaoshu hadn't expected Lu Shidi to suddenly do that. Doing so was dishonorable. But it was good because they could directly deal with Yi Xian and eliminate a huge problem for the academy. In the distance, Lu Shidi started laughing when he stabbed Yi Xian's sword into Yi Xian's stomach. A fair duel? In his opinion, there was no such thing as fairness in this world. Even when his teacher was still alive, there was no such thing as absolute fairness. The victor was king. That was the eternal truth of this world. So long as Yi Xian died and Fu Wenzong was destroyed, then everyone would forget about Yi Xian and Fu Wenzong in less than a month. History would only remember the victor. Right at this moment, his expression changed drastically because Yi Xian had suddenly grinned, and then a sword was stabbed into the center of Lu Shidi's forehead. The soul-suppressing sword. The soul-suppressing sword had suppressed Lu Shidi's soul. This sudden and unexpected event shocked everyone here. Lin Xiaoshu was about to attack when a huge amount of talismans covered the heavens and the earth as they surged towards him. The experts of the Worldwide Academy attacked in succession. However, Fu Wenzong's group didn't stand by idly and charged forward. In front of Yi Xian, Lu Shidi looked at Yi Xian in shock. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly withdrew the executing heaven sword, and then he swung it swiftly. Lu Shidi's head flew into the air. His body was destroyed. On the other hand, the soul-suppressing sword had directly absorbed Lu Shidi's soul. Yi Xian was expressionless. He hated nonsense the most. The more nonsense there was, the more unforeseen events would occur. If he continued to talk nonsense with Lu Shidi, what if other experts from the Worldwide Academy came to save him? At that time, he would cry. Therefore, it was better to kill him first. Actually, if Lu Shidi didn't play dirty tricks, he really couldn't beat him. Although his heavy sword and light sword were strong, Lu Shidi's realm was too high, and his battle awareness was even stronger than his. Therefore, if they fought normally, he had no hope of winning. However, he did not expect that Lu Shidi would go back on his word again. He did not expect that Lu Shidi would use his sword to kill him. Lu Shidi did not underestimate him at first, but the moment he was stabbed, Lu Shidi relaxed. Because Lu Shidi thought that the outcome was already set. And this moment was Yi Xian's chance. After the soul-suppressing sword absorbed Lu Shidi's soul, its aura suddenly skyrocketed. It was going to evolve. Yi Xian was delighted. He hurriedly put the soul-suppressing sword into the prison pagoda, and then he looked at Lin Xiaoshu, who was not far away. At this moment, the one fighting Lin Xiaoshu was Shao Qi, and only Shao Qi could barely hold back Lin Xiaoshu. Yi Xian stomped his right foot. Qi! A ray of sword light tore through the field. Boundless sword. In the distance, Lin Xiaoshu's expression suddenly changed. He suddenly turned around, and a ray of sword light had already arrived between his eyebrows. The sword had entered half an inch. At this moment of life and death, an illusory ancient book suddenly appeared above Lin Xiaoshu's head. Boom! Yi Xian and Shao Qi were directly sent flying by a powerful force. After Yi Xian stopped, he looked at Lin Xiaoshu. At this moment, Lin Xiaoshu was wrapped in a golden light. At this moment, Lian Qian's voice rang in Yi Xian's mind. The Book of Holy Words was given to him by Master in the past. This book is a defensive treasure, and with the protection of the holy words, your sword won't be able to break it. Yi Xian was silent. Damn, this worldwide academy had too many treasures. As if he had thought of something, he suddenly opened his palm, and the executing heaven sword flew in front of Shao Qi. You use this sword. Shao Qi looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian said, you hold him back, I will kill the others. Shao Qi nodded, okay. After saying that, she held the executing heaven sword and charged out. Wang! The sound of the sword rang out, shaking the sky. One had to admit that Shao Qi was really strong. It could be said that if Yi Xian didn't use those messy external items, he might not be able to defeat Shao Qi. After Shao Qi held Lin Xiaoshu back, Yi Xian charged towards the experts from the Worldwide Academy. With his current strength, how could these experts from the Worldwide Academy be a match for him? Instant kill. When Yi Xian's sword passed, heads would fall to the ground. Stop Yi Xian. At this moment, Lin Xiaoshu's voice rang out in the sky. Very quickly, some experts from the Worldwide Academy rushed towards Yi Xian, but at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Boundless sword. The experts from the Worldwide Academy glanced at each other. Where's Yi Xian? Suddenly, a shrill cry resounded from behind them. All of them turned around, and they saw a man's head flying into the air. However, Yi Xian still hadn't shown himself. The experts from the Worldwide Academy were horrified when they witnessed this scene. Shao Qi was suddenly blasted away. Lin Xiaoshu looked down, and then he opened his palm, and the Book of Holy Wisdom appeared in his hand. Meanwhile, a ray of light slashed towards him from the right. Yi Xian. This time, Yi Xian's target wasn't anyone else but him. Up until now, Lin Xiaoshu was the strongest fighter in the Worldwide Academy. If he could deal with Lin Xiaoshu, then the rest would be nothing to worry about. However, his sword slashed directly against the golden light emanated by the Book of Holy Wisdom. Bang! Yi Xian was blasted flying again. When he stopped moving, Shao Qi walked over to Yi Xian's side and spoke softly, he's invincible with that thing. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings. At this moment, Fu Wenzong and the experts from the Worldwide Academy were locked in battle. Fu Wenzong's individual combat strength was inferior to the experts from the Worldwide Academy. However, Fu Wenzong had talismans, and they'd made up for this gap. Meanwhile, Lin Xiaoshu suddenly said, get out of the formation. A formation. Lin Xiaoshu had just descended when an ancient golden book suddenly shot into the sky from below. Bang! The entire sky was covered by an expanse of golden light, and it didn't take long for countless golden ancient characters to appear in the surroundings. These ancient characters floated about in the surroundings, and every single one of them emanated extremely formidable energy. Fu Wenzong and the other experts hurriedly retreated when they witnessed this scene, and then they gathered together and withdrew all sorts of formidable defensive talismans. Meanwhile, Lu Yong suddenly appeared by Yi Xian's side, and he spoke in a low voice, young martial ancestor, we have to leave this sect. Otherwise, we'll forever be in a passive position. Leave Fu Wenzong. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings. It's quite difficult to leave now. Lu Yong asked, do you have a way? Yi Xian replied, leave if you have the chance later. Don't pay attention to me and Shao Qi. Understand? Lu Yong hesitated to speak, but Yi Xian spoke softly, all of you leave. I'll be able to protect myself. Lu Yong nodded, all right. Yi Xian looked up into the sky. The golden characters were growing in number, and strands of formidable energy were appearing incessantly in the surroundings. In midair, Lin Xiaoshu suddenly pressed down lightly with his right hand, and it didn't take long for the golden characters to start trembling violently. A short moment later, countless golden characters suddenly descended from the sky. The expressions of Shen Xinghe and the others instantly changed when they witnessed this scene. The consequences would be unimaginable if they were allowed to descend. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly floated into the air. He opened his palm, and a long brush suddenly appeared in his hand. Lin Xiaoshu, who was hovering in the air, immediately paled at the sight of this long brush. The heaven condemnation brush. Yi Xian grinned, and then he waved the brush. In an instant, an enormous brush shield suddenly appeared above him. Fu Wenzong, and the other experts, and the ancient characters in the sky smashed against the brush shield. Rumble. Numerous explosions resounded incessantly in the surroundings. On the other hand, Yi Xian's countenance instantly turned pale. He hurriedly withdrew a bottle of life spring water and gulped it down. Meanwhile, Shen Xinghe suddenly said, give him a healing talisman. As soon as he finished speaking, a few dozen orange healing talismans suddenly flew towards Yi Xian. Bang! 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 Beams of emerald green light burst out of Yi Xian's body. Yi Xian was speechless. The golden characters in midair were completely blocked by Yi Xian's heaven-punishing brush. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly grinned, and then he suddenly pointed his brush towards the sky, attack. As soon as he spoke, the enormous brush shield suddenly trembled violently, and then countless golden characters suddenly shot out from within it. Copy. Not only could this brush attack and defend, but it could also copy. When he saw the countless ancient characters rushing towards him, Lin Xiaoshu's face instantly darkened. He naturally recognized this heaven-punishing brush. It was also the treasure of the Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian took the treasure of the Worldwide Academy and used it to attack the Worldwide Academy. Without much time to think, Lin Xiaoshu suddenly took a step forward. He waved his right hand, and the Book of Holy Divinity suddenly flew out. In the next moment, rays of golden light poured down from the sky like a waterfall. Rumble. In an instant, the entire sky began to tremble violently, and countless waves of air rippled in all directions. And at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm, and a mirror appeared in his hand. He silently recited an incantation, and the next moment, the space and the sky suddenly began to overlap. Myriad-dimensional realm. Seeing this mirror, Lin Xiaoshu's face turned even uglier. How many treasures of the Worldwide Academy did Yi Xian have? He didn't have much time to think, because the myriad-dimensional mirror was a group attack treasure, and ordinary disciples of the Academy couldn't block it at all. Lin Xiaoshu raised his hands, and the overlapping space in the surroundings suddenly began to slowly return to its original state. And at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly soared into the sky. He didn't attack Lin Xiaoshu, but instead slashed towards the right. Bang! The light screen that was covered with golden characters was directly slashed apart by his sword. Yi Xian hurriedly said, let's go. Lu Yong immediately roared, let's go. Soon, he and Shen Xinghe led the many Fu Wenzong experts and flew towards the horizon. Yi Xian looked at Shao Qi, and Shao Qi nodded. Yi Xian stomped his right foot, and turned into a ray of sword light that soared into the sky. Shao Qi also followed closely behind. And at this moment, there was a sudden change. Below, a powerful force suddenly soared into the sky. Shao Qi, who was behind Yi Xian, sensed the danger and immediately turned around to slash. Bang! The ray of sword light shattered, and a powerful force directly swept Shaoqi downwards. Yi Xian, who had already disappeared into the horizon, suddenly stopped. Without the slightest hesitation, he directly turned around and rushed into the Worldwide Academy. P.S. Recruit a walk-on, a very interesting walk-on, leave your name. Chapter 894. Yi Xian had just rushed back to the Worldwide Academy when the sound of a sword rang in front of him. Then, a figure retreated in front of him. This person was Shaoqi. At this moment, Shaoqi's mouth was stained with blood and his expression was extremely solemn. Yi Xian raised his head and looked not far away. There stood an old man. It was this old man who had attacked just now. It's him. At this moment, Lian Xian's voice suddenly rang in Yi Xian's mind. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Who? Lian Xian said in a low voice, Han Ji. Back then, the head hierarch of the Academy's Wuyuan was in charge of teaching martial arts to all Wuyuan students. He was not one of the 6 hierarchs, but his strength was no weaker than them. Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, Shaoqi suddenly said, Be careful. Yi Xian nodded and looked up at the sky. Fu Wenzong and the other powerhouses had already retreated. He did not ask Shen Xinghe and the others to come over because it was too disadvantageous for them to fight in the Worldwide Academy. In the sky, Shen Xinghe looked in the direction of the Worldwide Academy below. Go and get that thing. Lu Yong was shocked. Senior brother, that thing is my, Fu Wenzong's, last resort. Shen Xinghe looked at Lu Yong. Is the person more important or that thing? Lu Yong did not say anything else and immediately turned to leave. As Shen Xinghe had said, nothing was more important than Yi Xian. He had to protect Yi Xian at all costs. Worldwide Academy. Han Ji, who stood before Yi Xian and Shaoqi, spoke abruptly in a light voice. I never imagined that the day would come when my Myriad Dimension Academy would fall to such a state. Someone actually attacked our academy, how shameful. Lin Xiaoshu walked to Han Ji's side and said calmly, We cannot escape the blame for falling to such a state. Han Ji nodded. Yes. With that, he looked at Yi Xian. I've heard of you. It's said that you have the treasure of the Worldwide Academy. Yi Xian grinned. He opened his palm and the prison pagoda appeared in his hand. It's in my hands. Do you want it? Han Ji looked at Yi Xian. You're very confident. He is also very arrogant. Yi Xian laughed. I'll fight even if I'm confident. I'll still fight even if I'm not confident. Why shouldn't I be more arrogant? Han Ji nodded. Lu Shidi died in your hands, which proves that you have strength. Come, let me see how strong you are. As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped his right foot. Boom! The space in front of Yi Xian suddenly shattered. Yi Xian suddenly roared, Gather! As soon as he finished speaking, the space in front of him suddenly returned to its original state. Space Dao Law. At this moment, a long spear pierced through the air. Yi Xian unsheathed his sword and slashed. Boom! An explosion resounded. Yi Xian retreated rapidly. Han Ji, who was in front of him, also retreated several feet. After Yi Xian stopped, the executing heaven sword in his hands suddenly flew out. Immeasurable sword. The sword was like a thunderclap. It was extremely fast. In the distance, Han Ji narrowed his eyes and blocked with his spear. Boom! The long spear shook violently and he retreated instantly. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared above his head. Just as Yi Xian was about to attack, Han Ji twisted his wrist and the long spear in his hand suddenly stabbed at Yi Xian's abdomen. His speed was faster than Yi Xian's. Moreover, the spear was longer than the sword. However, in the air, Yi Xian did not retract his sword. Instead, he forcibly moved his body slightly to the right. Chi! Boom! The long spear pierced through Yi Xian's right shoulder while Han Ji retreated over 30 feet away. There was a deep sword mark on his right shoulder. Yi Xian had been hit by his spear, but Han Ji had also taken a sword from Yi Xian, and this sword had almost severed his left hand. Han Ji looked at Yi Xian. He was still not used to Yi Xian's fighting style. Exchanging injury for injury, exchanging life for life. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Han Ji. At this moment, Han Ji suddenly brandished his long spear. In an instant, spear after spear of light continuously shattered the space around him. The powerful spear of light directly engulfed Yi Xian. At this moment, within the powerful spear of light, sword after sword appeared continuously. Boom! 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 The surrounding space trembled. After about a quarter of an hour, Yi Xian and Han Ji suddenly disappeared. Lin Xiaoshu's face sank when he saw this. Book Realm. In the Book Realm, Han Ji looked around with a solemn expression. Naturally, he recognized this Book Realm. This Book Realm could suppress one's cultivation level. Once one's cultivation level was suppressed, his chances of winning against Yi Xian would be lower. Moreover, there were word spirits in this Book Realm. Yi Xian looked at Han Ji and without a word, he vanished on the spot. In the next moment, a sword suddenly appeared in front of Han Ji. On the tip of the sword, there was a dot of blood red. The word spirit of the word destroy. Han Ji's eyes narrowed slightly at the sight of this, and then he suddenly soared into the air. Moreover, in the next moment, the spear in his hand suddenly slashed down. He didn't dodge but chose to meet it head-on. As soon as the sword and spear collided, boom! An earth-shattering explosion suddenly resounded. Then, both of them retreated at the same time and stopped almost at the same time. Han Ji looked at the spear in his hand. The body of the spear had cracked. After a moment of silence, he looked at the sword in Yi Xian's hand. What a good sword! I didn't expect that the treasures of my worldwide academy would recognize you as their master. Moreover, that unruly word spirit is also willing to pledge loyalty to you. You're quite capable. Just at this moment, Yi Xian, who was in the distance, suddenly disappeared. Han Ji reacted extremely quickly and suddenly rushed forward. As he rushed forward, countless spear lights shot out. These spear lights instantly drowned Yi Xian, and within these spear lights, a sword light suddenly tore through. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Within the Book Realm, a series of rumbles sounded continuously. After a moment, a figure suddenly flew out. It was Yi Xian. After Yi Xian stopped, a trace of blood slowly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He looked at the opposite side and saw that Han Ji was holding 2 spears in his hands. 2 spears. Han Ji looked at Yi Xian. I have to say, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Before he arrived, his sword arrived first. Light sword. This sword was extremely fast. However, for an old powerhouse like Han Ji, Yi Xian's sword speed was not fast enough. He blocked with his spear and accurately blocked Yi Xian's sword. At this moment, Yi Xian's light sword suddenly turned into a heavy sword. Yi Xian wielded the heavy sword and swept it horizontally. Boom! Han Ji was instantly swept away by Yi Xian's sword. Yi Xian suddenly took a quick step forward. At this moment, the heavy sword in his hand had changed into a light sword. This sword did not have the great power of the heavy sword, but it was as fast as lightning. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. The next moment, a long spear suddenly attacked from the back of Yi Xian's head. Yi Xian dodged sideways and avoided this spear by a hair's breadth. At the same time, he twisted his wrist and slashed his sword horizontally, aiming for Han Ji's abdomen. Han Ji blocked with his spear. However, at this moment, Yi Xian's long sword suddenly turned into a heavy sword. Rumble. Han Ji was once again sent flying. The moment he was sent flying, Yi Xian's heavy sword turned into a light sword again. The sword was like a sudden clap of thunder, flashing past. In the distance, Han Ji's pupils suddenly shrank. He raised his spear and stabbed. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly grasped the light sword, and the light sword instantly turned into a heavy sword. The sword arrived, rumble. Han Ji retreated rapidly again. He could not completely withstand the power of Yi Xian's heavy sword. Before Han Ji could stop, Yi Xian once again rushed in front of him. Soon, the two were engaged in a fierce battle. At this moment, Yi Xian actually showed signs of suppressing Han Ji. Of course, this was also because of the book realm. If not for the suppression of the book realm, he would not be able to fight against Han Ji. After all, the other party's realm was much higher than his. Just like this, after about a quarter of an hour, Yi Xian directly suppressed Han Ji. Sword rule. As Yi Xian fought with Han Ji, he became more and more proficient in using sword rule. Of course, the most important thing was the executing heaven's sword in his hand. This sword was too sharp. After losing the advantage of his realm, Han Ji did not dare to face this sword head-on. To Yi Xian, the only flaw was that he lacked a good heavy sword. The heavy sword he was using now was given to him by the sword spirit. It was very ordinary. If this heavy sword was the same as the executing heaven sword, his strength could increase by at least 10 to 20%. About a quarter of an hour later. Boom! The surrounding bookshelves in the book realm suddenly shook violently. Immediately, two figures retreated rapidly at the same time. After Yi Xian stopped, the sword in his hands suddenly flew out. In the distance, Han Ji suddenly clasped his hands together, and this time, he directly caught Yi Xian's sword. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of him, and at the same time, a heavy sword slashed down from above his head. Han Ji's pupils suddenly shrank. He hurriedly let go of the executing heaven's sword and dodged backward. At this moment, Yi Xian's heavy sword suddenly turned into the executing heaven's sword again. This time, the sword directly pierced into Han Ji's chest. However, it only pierced half an inch, because at some point in time, Han Ji's long spear had also pierced into Yi Xian's chest. This time, Han Ji chose to exchange injury for injury. And at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly rushed forward. He directly let Han Ji's long spear pierce through his chest, and at the same time, his sword also pierced through Han Ji's body. A life for a life. Han Ji did not expect Yi Xian to be so ruthless. He looked at Yi Xian and grinned, "With our strength, neither of us can kill the other." At this moment, the executing heaven's sword in Yi Xian's hands suddenly turned into the soul-suppressing sword. The moment it turned into the soul-suppressing sword, Yi Xian directly retreated more than 10 feet away, while Han Ji's whole body was stunned on the spot. Soul fixation. At this moment, Han Ji's soul was directly fixed by the soul-suppressing sword. Han Ji looked at Yi Xian and was about to speak, but suddenly, a sword suddenly flashed past his neck. Chi! Han Ji's head directly flew off, and his soul was instantly absorbed by the soul-suppressing sword. He did not even have the chance to resist. And in the distance, Yi Xian sat on the ground. There was a large hole in his chest. In fact, he was also seriously injured. This battle was not won easily at all. In the battle with Han Ji, he used the book realm, the word spirit, the executing heaven sword, the soul-suppressing sword, and the dragon blood in his body, especially the ancestral blood of the heavenly dragon. If not for the ancestral blood of the heavenly dragon, his physical strength would not have been able to suppress Han Ji. All in all, this time, it was not easy for him to win. It could be said that he gave it his all. At this moment, sitting on the ground, Yi Xian's expression suddenly changed. And at this moment, Lian Qian's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind, "That woman is here. Run! Run!" At this moment, a light laugh suddenly sounded from within the book realm. The next moment, the book realm actually began to collapse inch by inch. Chapter 895. This sudden turn of events caused Yi Xian's expression to change drastically. Someone could forcefully destroy the book realm? He didn't even have the time to think about it when the space here suddenly shattered into pieces. His face instantly turned as pale as a sheet of paper. Very soon, Yi Xian appeared in the Worldwide Academy. Blood continuously flowed from the corner of his mouth. Not far from his right, Shaoqi knelt on one knee on the ground. In front of her was also a pool of blood. Yi Xian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked in the distance and saw a woman standing there. She was wearing a dark golden dress that dragged on the ground. Flowing lights overflowed from her dress, as if it was the convergence of a galaxy. It was dazzling. Behind her, 2 long sleeves fluttered in the wind. On the sleeves, 2 black phoenixes were embroidered with their heads held high. In the eyes of the phoenixes, there was a domineering aura that looked down on the world. On her feet, she wore a pair of pure black cloth shoes. However, if one looked closely, they would discover that this pair of cloth shoes was actually made of dragon skin. What was worth mentioning was the woman's long hair. The woman's hair reached her waist and her entire body was golden. In front of her forehead, 2 strands of bangs fluttered. The woman's appearance was also peerless. She had an oval face, phoenix eyes, and the slight curve at the corner of her mouth made her look somewhat cynical and unruly. This person was the Worldwide Academy's Zhang Wenxiu. In terms of strength, she was only second to the female teacher of the Worldwide Academy. In the past, this Zhang Wenxiu was much more terrifying than the female teacher. This was because the female teacher was kind and had never made enemies with anyone. The people of the 5th dimension were also smart and would not provoke the female teacher. However, this Zhang Wenxiu was different. She was a crazy witch in the past. If you did not provoke her, she would provoke you. In the 5th dimension, this woman's reputation could be said to be notorious. Even within the Worldwide Academy, no one dared to provoke her. This was because she was really good at fighting. Zhang Wenxiu sized up Yi Xian, then looked at Lin Xiaoshu. Is this the guy who killed Lu Shidi and Han Ji? Lin Xiaoshu nodded. Yes. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly threw a slap at Lin Xiaoshu. Lin Xiaoshu's expression changed as he raised the Book of Holy Words to block the slap. Boom! Under everyone's watchful eyes, Lin Xiaoshu and the Book of Holy Prophecy were sent flying. Not only that, but the Book of Holy Prophecy also split open. Everyone, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he saw this. This woman is extraordinarily strong. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu glanced at the Worldwide Academy powerhouses and made a shameful face. How embarrassing. You guys are such a disgrace. As she spoke, she suddenly pointed at Lin Xiaoshu. Especially you, you're practically a piece of trash. How can you still have the face to live? If I were you, I'd just find a piece of paper and kill myself. And that Lu Shidi and Tianji, they're both super big pieces of trash. They've cultivated for so many years, yet they were killed by a kid who hasn't even grown his hair yet. It's good that they're dead, it's so fucking good that they're dead. Everyone, Yi Xian had a strange expression on his face. Is there something wrong with this woman? At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly looked at Yi Xian and sized up Yi Xian. You're quite capable. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, be reasonable. It was your Worldwide Academy who came looking for trouble with me first. Be reasonable? Zhang Wenxiu sneered. What the hell is that? Yi Xian, at this moment, Lian Xian's voice suddenly rang out in Yi Xian's mind. Run! Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly grabbed with her right hand and a powerful force enveloped Yi Xian. Come out! As soon as she finished speaking, she lifted her right hand and directly pulled Lian Xian out of the World Prison Pagoda. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression became extremely solemn. This woman's strength was even more terrifying than Chen Yimeng's. Yo, TSK, Zhang Wenxiu sized up Lian Xian. I was wondering who it was. So it's Lian Xian. So you're not dead yet? Lian Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu and did not speak. Zhang Wenxiu looked around. Where's your big sister? Don't tell me she's dead. If that's the case, I'll be very sad. You know that if I can't kill her with my own hands, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Lian Xian's face was expressionless. If you're so powerful, why don't you go and fight with the headmaster? Zhang Wenxiu suddenly slapped Lian Xian. Lian Xian narrowed her eyes and put her hands together. A seal suddenly appeared in front of her, but the seal instantly shattered. Boom! Lian Xian instantly retreated. When she stopped, a trickle of blood slowly flowed from the corner of her mouth. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Lian Xian expressionlessly. We haven't seen each other for so many years, but your eloquence is getting better. Yi Xian suddenly said, I think her eloquence is still not as good as yours. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. I've heard a lot about the Worldwide Academy. I have to say that I'm quite impressed by the former prophet and some of the people from the Worldwide Academy. However, after interacting with you guys for so long, I've realized that you guys are really a pile of dog sh*t. As he said that, he pointed at Zhang Wenxiu angrily. You can't stand others doing well. That Xiao Ta recognized me as his master. This is Xiao Ta's own choice. Why can't the academy let him? Also, when you beat up the young, the old comes. Why? Does the Worldwide Academy only know how to bully the young? Zhang Wenxiu sneered. Don't talk to me about this nonsense. Of course, as you said, the academy is indeed a pile of dog sh*t. Yi Xian was speechless. Zhang Wenxiu continued, actually, I've been annoyed by this academy for a long time. Unfortunately, it was created by teacher. No matter how much I dislike it, I can't destroy it with my own hands. I won't let others destroy it either. As for bullying the young, I feel that since I'm stronger than you, why can't I bully the young? If you're so capable, you should become stronger too. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. This woman was not playing by the rules. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Lian Xian. Lian Xian, no matter what, you were created by teacher. I can't believe you helped an outsider destroy the academy. I didn't know that you had such a rebellious bone in you. Lian Xian was expressionless. Zhang Wenxiu, he's not an outsider. He's master's inheritor. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said angrily, **t. How many years is teacher different from him? Inheritor? Do you think I'm a pig? Lian Xian said in a low voice, Xiao Ta has recognized him as his master. Zhang Wenxiu was expressionless. Is Xiao Ta master? Xiao Ta is just a piece of trash created by teacher. Can he represent teacher? At this moment, the prison pagoda in Yi Xian's body suddenly trembled. Yi Xian was speechless. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Lian Xian coldly. Even if he's teacher's inheritor, so what? Am I not teacher's inheritor? Also, have you forgotten what teacher said in the past? Those who harm each other will be punished by the heavens and earth. This kid killed Lu Shidi. If he's teacher's inheritor, then he's a taboo in our sect. Lian Xian was about to speak when Zhang Wenxiu suddenly waved his hand. Why am I wasting my time talking nonsense with you? Really, it's a waste of time. I'll deal with you guys first, then I'll go and destroy Fu Wenzong. How dare any Tom, Dick, or Harry bully my academy? As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly clenched her right hand towards Yi Xian from afar. In an instant, the space around Yi Xian started to warp. Yi Xian was horrified, and he suddenly roared furiously, break. As soon as he spoke, the space Dao Law suddenly appeared between his brows, and it didn't take long for the space before him to start shattering. However, his face instantly turned pale. In the distance, Zhang Wenxiu laughed coldly. Space Dao Law. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly waved her right hand. With just a light wave, the space before Yi Xian started to shatter layer by layer, and Yi Xian retreated explosively. When Xiao Qi saw this, she transformed into a ray of sword light that slashed towards Zhang Wenxiu. It was a very powerful attack. However, Zhang Wenxiu's eyes were filled with disdain, and she stomped her right foot lightly. Bang! The ray of sword light shattered, and Xiao Qi was blasted flying. She couldn't fight back at all. The gap between them was too huge. After Yi Xian stopped moving, he glanced at his body. At this moment, his body was actually covered in cracks. Moreover, his Space Dao Law had suffered a heavy injury just now as well. This was the first time his Space Dao Law had been injured. This woman was even more terrifying than Qin Yimeng. Meanwhile, Xiao Qi walked over to Yi Xian's side, and she gazed at Zhang Wenxiu in the distance as she spoke in a low voice. This woman is very strong. Yi Xian nodded. She outsmarted her opponent. Xiao Qi gazed at Yi Xian. Let's watch your performance. Yi Xian nodded slightly, and then he gazed at Zhang Wenxiu. Miss Wenxiu, I want to say a few words before you kill me. Before Zhang Wenxiu could speak, Lin Xiaoshu suddenly said, Don't let him speak. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Lin Xiaoshu, and Lin Xiaoshu said solemnly, This person has a glib tongue, and he is good at tricks. It is better to kill him directly. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Lin Xiaoshu. You don't want him to speak, but I want him to. Lin Xiaoshu's face twitched. Was there something wrong with this woman? Although he thought so, he didn't dare to say it out loud. He knew that apart from his former teacher, she wouldn't give face to anyone else. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian quickly said, Miss Wenxiu, you can't be considered an expert if you kill me. If you have the ability, then kill the people behind me. Do you dare? Zhang Wenxiu smiled. Are you trying to provoke me? Yi Xian said, That's right. It's a provocation. Miss Wenxiu, do you dare to follow me to kill the people behind me? Zhang Wenxiu laughed out loud. You don't say. I want to meet the people behind you. After all, we have to do things in one go. Lead the way. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu and then at Lian Xian and Seven. Enter the tower. Seven didn't hesitate and entered the prison tower. Lian Xian hesitated and then said, Who are you going to find? Yi Xian said, Let's enter the tower. Lian Xian looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything else. She entered the prison tower. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu. Let's go. After saying that, he turned around and left. In the distance, Lin Xiaoshu wanted to say something, but Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, Shut up. You retard, stop wasting air. After saying that, she followed Yi Xian. Lin Xiaoshu. P.S. Do you dare to vote for me? Chapter 896. Within the Worldwide Academy, Lin Xiaoshu's expression was extremely unsightly. Based on his understanding of Yi Xian, he was definitely going to play some dirty tricks. That was why he had asked Zhang Wenxiu to kill Yi Xian directly to prevent any future troubles. However, this crazy woman just had to go against him. This crazy woman. Lin Xiaoshu sighed softly. No matter what, this woman still cared about the Worldwide Academy. This time, if it wasn't for this woman's appearance, the Worldwide Academy would probably have lost even more people. As for the Great Formation at the Worldwide Academy, unless it was absolutely necessary, it couldn't be used. This was because it was a deterrent. Once it was used, the Worldwide Academy would lose its final trump card. At that time, the Worldwide Academy would completely lose its current status. Moreover, there would definitely be many forces that would have designs on the Worldwide Bookstore. That was why the Great Formation couldn't be used carelessly. With the current strength of the Worldwide Academy, it could only be used once a year at most. Lin Xiaoshu collected his thoughts and looked into the distance. He hesitated for a while, but in the end, he still didn't follow her. He was afraid that if he followed her, it would only ruin things. After all, that woman wasn't normal. In the distant horizon, Yi Xian was flying on his sword. Beside him was Zhang Wenxiu. One had to admit, this Zhang Wenxiu was very confident. Of course, she had the capital to be so confident. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly smiled and said, I'm a little surprised that you were able to make that Xiao Ta recognize you as his master. Yi Xian said, I've seen Chen Yimeng before. Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, among the few disciples of master, he's the only one who's decent. It's just that he's a little pedantic. He's always trying to reason with people. He's simply out of his mind. Yi Xian glanced at Zhang Wenxiu and thought to himself, Miss Lian Xian, how did your master fall for this crazy woman in the first place? After a moment of silence, Lian Xian said, although this woman is crazy, don't underestimate her. I'm not talking about her strength, but her knowledge. Her knowledge is only a little less than that of the headmaster. Or rather, her knowledge is on par with that of the headmaster. Yi Xian frowned. Is this woman that knowledgeable? Lian Xian said, she is very knowledgeable, and she is the only one in the academy who dares to argue with master. However, she never showed off her knowledge or disdain. She said that her master's methods were useless in this world where only the strong were respected. She also said that the reason why the fifth dimension was so harmonious in the past was because of her master's formidable strength. If her master was weak, others wouldn't even pay attention to him. Therefore, in her opinion, strength is the king. If you have strength, people will be willing to listen to you. If you don't have strength, even if you are reasonable, people will still treat you like a fart. Yi Xian was silent. He had to admit that what this woman said made sense. If a person didn't have strength, who would take him seriously? As the saying goes, don't join the crowd if you don't have money, and don't persuade people if your words are light. At this time, Lian Xian said, this woman has another special strength, and that is the Tao of idealism. She created her own Tao, and everything is done according to her heart. Therefore, if she wants to be reasonable, she will be reasonable. If she doesn't want to be reasonable, she will be unreasonable. Speaking up to this point, she paused and then continued, I think that she is a little similar to you. Just like you can be shameless when you want to be. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. How could she say that? At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, have you seen teacher? Prophet. Yi Xian shook his head. I haven't seen him. After a moment of silence, Zhang Wenxiu said softly, I've been looking for him for a long time. Yi Xian said, why did he suddenly disappear? Zhang Wenxiu's face was expressionless. Who knows? As she said that, she suddenly opened her right hand. The next moment, the World Prison Pagoda in Yi Xian's body flew into her hand. The World Prison Pagoda trembled slightly. It was very fearful. Zhang Wenxiu looked at the World Prison Pagoda. Do you know where teacher is? The World Prison Pagoda shook its head. Zhang Wenxiu narrowed her eyes. As far as I know, when teacher disappeared, you were with him. The World Prison Pagoda trembled slightly, as if expressing something. Zhang Wenxiu still wanted to say something, but Lian Xian suddenly said, when teacher disappeared in the end, it was very strange. Not to mention it, even we don't know. After a moment of silence, Zhang Wenxiu threw the World Prison Pagoda in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian kept the World Prison Pagoda and looked at Zhang Wenxiu. Don't you want to open teacher's study room with this pagoda? Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, teacher isn't in the study room. Why would we open it? Saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. Do you think I'm like the others who covet teacher's treasures? If I had such thoughts, would this stupid pagoda have been able to escape? Hearing this, Yi Xian suddenly understood. He understood why Zhang Wenxiu had such a bad attitude towards the people from the Worldwide Academy. This woman must be very disgusted with the people from the Worldwide Academy coveting the prophet's treasures. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, who are you taking me to? Yi Xian said, we'll be there soon. Zhang Wenxiu glanced at Yi Xian. Let's make a bet. Let's bet whether you'll die today or not. Yi Xian did not hesitate. Bet that I won't die. What a joke. Of course he would bet that he wouldn't die. Zhang Wenxiu shrugged. Looks like I can only bet that you'll die. Yi Xian smiled. What's the bet? Zhang Wenxiu said, tell me. Yi Xian said in a light voice, if I don't die today, then you're not allowed to make a move against me or the talisman sect for a year. Not only that, you have to make a move against me twice. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. What if you die? Yi Xian said, if I die, I'll pay the price with my life. Isn't that enough? Zhang Wenxiu shook his head. How thick-skinned. Yi Xian said, don't think that you're at a disadvantage. You're definitely stronger than me, aren't you? Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, all right, I promise you. Yi Xian looked at Zhang Wenxiu. Can I trust you? Zhang Wenxiu asked in return, what do you think? Yi Xian nodded. I trust you. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Why? Yi Xian said, because you're the prophet's disciple. As far as I know, the prophet hates it when the strong use their strength to bully the weak. You won't do something he hates. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Yi Xian said again, to be honest, I don't trust you. I trust the prophet. Because I trust his foresight. Zhang Wenxiu shook his head and smiled. You want to play these little tricks with me? But, as you wish, I really won't do anything he dislikes. If you don't die today, I won't kill you for a year and I won't attack Fu Wenzong. I can still attack you twice. Of course, that's on the condition that you don't die. Yi Xian nodded. All right. With that, he quickened his pace. At this moment, Lian Xian's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Are you going to look for the plain-dressed woman? She knew that among the people Yi Xian knew, only the plain-dressed woman could suppress Zhang Wenxiu. Yi Xian shook his head. The plain-dressed woman? He did not know where she was. The plain-dressed woman's whereabouts were a mystery. Yi Xian did not think too much about it and quickened his pace. As for Zhang Wenxiu, the corners of his lips curled up and a playful smile appeared on his face. About an hour later, Yi Xian brought Zhang Wenxiu to a piece of barren land. When they arrived, Lian Xian knew who Yi Xian was looking for. Zhang Wenxiu narrowed his eyes. Yi Xian looked into the distance. At the end of his vision, he could see a pitch-black door. Behind the door, there was an eerie aura. Azura hell. This time, the person he was looking for was none other than Yi Ling. In fact, he had wanted to look for Yi Ling for a long time, but he did not have the chance. Now, he had no choice but to look for her. He did not want to seek protection from Yi Ling, but he wanted to see if Yi Ling was still his sister. If she was not, then it was not a bad thing to end his life here. Of course, he still wanted to see her. Yi Ling. Scenes of the past appeared in Yi Xian's mind. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly smiled and said, Azura hell. As she said this, she looked at Yi Xian. Don't tell me that the helper you found is this Azura Empress. Yi Xian looked into the distance and remained silent. Zhang Wenxiu smiled and said, as far as I know, this Azura Empress is an extremely heartless person. Why, do you want her to help you? Yi Xian shook his head. No, I just wanted to come here and take a look. Zhang Wenxiu smiled. What do you want to see? To see the Azura Empress? Yi Xian nodded. I want to see her. As he said this, he looked at the door in the distance. In fact, he was at a loss. Was Yi Ling still the same Yi Ling? He was not sure. This was because the Yi Ling he saw in the four-dimensional universe was too strong. He was so strong that he felt unfamiliar. He did not know if Yi Ling was still the same Yi Ling. If it was not, he had never thought about this question before, but now he did. If he wasn't, then everything would be meaningless. His main purpose in coming to the five-dimensional universe was to find Yi Ling. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly smiled and said, You are not an idiot. You must have a reason for coming here. I am curious why you think this Azura Empress will help you. Yi Xian did not speak, he just looked into the distance. Zhang Wenxiu also looked into the distance. There was no movement inside the door. Zhang Wenxiu smiled and said, I will give you 15 minutes. Yi Xian was silent. 15 minutes passed in the blink of an eye. When the time was up, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly smiled and said, "It seems that our Azura Empress will not come out." As she said this, she looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said softly, "Do it." After saying this, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He knew that Yi Ling must know that he was here, but she did not appear. This explained everything. He was not going to force anything. Zhang Wenxiu looked at the door in the distance. She shook her head and smiled. Then, she looked at Yi Xian, who was very close to her, and said, "It seems that you have lost this bet. Go." As she said this, she suddenly raised her right hand and a powerful force suddenly enveloped Yi Xian. However, at this time, a voice suddenly came from the side, "Try and touch him." Chapter 897. Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes when he heard this voice, and he looked towards the distance. A young girl was walking over slowly from there. It was none other than Yi Ling. There were two old men behind Yi Ling who were like ghosts. At this moment, Yi Ling wore a dark black dress and was barefoot. Her feet were floating in the air, and she emanated a ghastly aura. The Azura Empress. The last emperor in the world. The smile on Zhang Wenxiu's face gradually vanished as she gazed at Yi Ling. There were countless emperors in the world all those years ago. However, all of them instantly dimmed in comparison when the Azura Empress appeared. Moreover, no one dared to call themselves an emperor after her. Even she, Zhang Wenxiu, wasn't able to become an emperor during that era. Because the world didn't acknowledge it. If one wanted to become an emperor, then one had to fight the Azura Empress first. Zhang Wenxiu glanced at Yi Xian. At this moment, she was quite curious. She was curious about the relationship between Yi Xian and the Azura Empress. Meanwhile, Yi Ling walked over to Zhang Wenxiu and looked Zhang Wenxiu in the eyes. "Fuck off. Fuck off." As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere and the surroundings instantly became tense. Zhang Wenxiu roared with laughter. She opened her right hand, and a bolt of lightning suddenly descended from the sky. In the next moment, the bolt of lightning fell into her hand. It was a lightning spear condensed from lightning. Zhang Wenxiu gazed at Yi Ling and roared with laughter. "Come, allow me, Zhang Wenxiu, to experience the strength of the Azura Empress." As soon as she finished speaking, she stabbed the lightning spear forward. As soon as the spear was stabbed forward, the space in an area of over 100 kilometers was suddenly filled with lightning. The lightning territory. At this moment, Yi Xian was horrified. Because he noticed that the lightning around him was madly destroying him. Yi Xian hurriedly activated the sword territory. He instantly felt much better once it appeared, but it still wasn't good. The lightning didn't take the initiative to attack him, but the aftershock from it was difficult for him to resist. So powerful. At this moment, he finally realized how terrifying this woman's power was. This was not something that Lu Shidi and Lin Xiaoshu could compare to. The difference was too great. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian hurriedly gazed at Yi Ling. A lightning spear was stabbing towards Yi Ling. Moreover, the lightning in an area of over 100 kilometers had converged madly towards Yi Ling as well. This spear could really be said to be earth-shattering. In front of Zhang Wenxiu, Yi Ling was expressionless. When the lightning spear was half a zhang away from her, she suddenly opened her right hand and clenched it tightly. All things returned to silence. As her voice fell, a blood-red sickle suddenly flew out from her palm. Qi. Between heaven and earth, something was being torn apart. In the next moment, Yi Xian watched with astonishment as the lightning started to shatter apart layer by layer. In less than a breath of time, the lightning domain had collapsed, and the lightning spear in Zhang Wenxiu's hand had started to shatter inch by inch. Suddenly, Zhang Wenxiu roared with laughter. "Everything returns to silence. Come, take another spear strike from me." As soon as she finished speaking, she'd arrived in midair, and she looked down at Yi Ling from there. A spear had suddenly appeared in her grasp, and she grinned as she lightly swept it towards Yiling, sky-split. Hiss! The spear flew out from Zhang Wenxiu's grasp. Everywhere it passed, the entire sky split apart. When looked at from afar, it seemed like a rift had been torn open in this expanse of the heavens and the earth. It was an extremely shocking sight. Moreover, a spear carried destructive force as it swept down from within that rift, and its target was Yiling. Yi Xian's expression instantly changed violently when he saw this force, and he practically instinctively flashed over to stand in front of Yiling. He stared fixedly at the spear, and at this moment, his expression was unprecedentedly solemn. This spear strike was truly very formidable. Even if he utilized the energy of his bloodline, he wouldn't be able to resist it. Yiling gazed silently at Yi Xian while standing behind Yi Xian. What's this fellow doing? On the other hand, the two old men behind her were hesitant to speak, and they gazed at Yi Xian. What's this fellow doing? Right at this moment, Yiling suddenly patted Yi Xian on the shoulder and spoke softly, "Allow me." Yi Xian was stunned when he heard Yiling, and then he gazed at Yiling. Yiling nodded, "Allow me." Yi Xian grinned. "All right." As he spoke, he retreated behind Yiling. Yiling looked at the spear that had already arrived above her head, and her expression was very calm. She opened her palm, and the blood-red scythe in her hands suddenly flew out, and the scythe silently slashed at the spear. Chi! A subtle tearing sound was suddenly heard, and immediately after, the spear in Zhang Wenxiu's hand split into two. The scythe's speed did not decrease, and it soared into the sky, slashing straight at Zhang Wenxiu. In the air, Zhang Wenxiu grinned. Interesting, haha. As soon as she finished speaking, she slowly closed her eyes, and in an instant, the blood-red scythe below her slowed down. Below, Yiling's expression was calm, but the expressions of the two old men behind her changed drastically. One of the old men said in a deep voice, "Spear Soul Dimension. This woman is so powerful." Yi Xian looked at the old man who spoke and asked, "Senior, what is the Spear Soul Dimension?" The old man glanced at Yi Xian, and then said, "It's that woman's spear has already surpassed this dimension, and she's not in this dimension either." Yi Xian asked again, "She's already surpassed the fifth dimension? In the sixth dimension?" The old man's mouth twitched, and he did not say anything else. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Lian Xian's voice suddenly sounded, "The dimension he mentioned is actually space. Space has thickness, and not only does it have thickness, there are also dimensions. The five-dimensional universe refers to the 5 dimensions of space here, and Zhang Wenxiu has already entered the second dimension. She attacked Yiling in the second dimension, so the speed of Yiling's scythe has slowed down. This is because this is suppression, dimensional suppression. And people in the second dimension have absolute suppression over people in the first dimension. Not only can Zhang Wenxiu enter the second dimension, but she can also fuse her spear Dao with it, so it can be said that this is very impressive." Yi Xian nodded, and as if thinking of something, he asked again, "How can I enter the second dimension?" Lian Xian said, "There's no shortcut, you can only break it with force, and you need to have a deep understanding of space. You can't do without either." Yi Xian asked again, "Which dimension does the plain-dressed woman belong to?" Lian Xian suddenly said angrily, "Shut up. You talker." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the space in the distance suddenly trembled, and Yi Xian quickly looked up. The space had become illusory, and the blood-red scythe had completely stopped. Yi Xian quickly looked at Yiling, and the space around Yiling was in a strange illusory state. Obviously, Zhang Wenxiu was suppressing her in the second dimension. Yi Xian was a little worried. At this moment, Yiling suddenly opened her palm, and the blood-red scythe in the sky suddenly appeared in her hand. She held the scythe and lightly slashed it in front of her. Chi! There was a soft tearing sound, and it was this slash that suddenly restored the space to normal, and in the sky, a bloody scar suddenly appeared on Zhang Wenxiu's face. In the sky, Zhang Wenxiu touched her face lightly, and she looked down at Yu Lai. "As expected of the last empress of the human world, I'm convinced." As she said that, she looked at Yi Xian. You win. With that, she turned and disappeared at the end of the horizon. Yi Xian hesitated, and then asked, Linger, how did you win? Linger? The two old men behind Yi Ling had extremely strange expressions, and one of them was about to speak, but was stopped by the other. Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian, and she just looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian said, You're still Linger, right? Yi Ling still remained silent. Yi Xian opened his palm, and a little wooden figure appeared in his hand. This little wooden figure looked exactly like Yi Ling. Yi Ling suddenly said, Stand down. The two old men behind her silently retreated to the side. Yi Ling said, Come with me. With that, she turned and walked towards the distance. Yi Xian hurriedly followed her, and in next to no time, the two of them passed through the door and entered the Azura Hell. As soon as they entered the Azura Hell, a ghastly aura assaulted their faces, and Yi Xian couldn't help but shiver. It was very ghastly. This place was the most ghastly place he had ever seen. Yi Ling led Yi Xian deeper into the Azura Hell. Along the way, Yi Xian discovered that there were experts in black armor standing all around. These people's auras were extremely powerful, much more powerful than the experts in the worldwide academy. When these people saw Yi Ling, they all knelt on one knee. On the way, Lian Qian suddenly said, She's really strong. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, Why do you say so? Lian Qian said in a deep voice, When she fought with Zhang Wenxiu, she didn't enter the second dimension, but used the first dimension to break Zhang Wenxiu's second dimension. This kind of strength is very terrifying, worthy of being the strongest great emperor in the fifth dimension. Yi Xian grinned. He was really happy that Yi Ling was strong, but he still felt a little disappointed. This was because Yi Ling didn't need his protection anymore. At this time, Lian Qian said, Your sister's strength is probably enough to enter the third dimension. If that's true, then it's too heaven-defying. Yi Xian looked at Yi Ling, Can you enter the third dimension? Yi Ling nodded slightly. Yes. Yi Xian was about to speak, but Yi Ling suddenly said softly, Why did you come to the fifth dimension? Yi Xian said, To look for you. Yi Ling stopped and looked at Yi Xian. And then? Yi Xian walked in front of Yi Ling and looked at Yi Ling, You're my sister, and I'm your brother. Yi Ling said softly, What you care about is the old Yi Ling. Yi Xian suddenly grabbed Yi Ling's hand. Yi Ling didn't resist, but the guards around them looked at Yi Xian with unkind expressions. However, seeing that Yi Ling didn't resist, they didn't dare to say anything. Yi Xian looked at Yi Ling in front of him and said softly, Are you not the old Yi Ling? Or have you forgotten everything in the past? Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian. Do you know who I am? Yi Xian smiled. You're my sister. Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian for a long time. All of a sudden, scenes of the past flashed across her mind. Gradually, tears welled up in her eyes. Chapter 898. Inside the prison pagoda, Lian Qian sighed softly. At this moment, she was certain that the Shura Empress was Yi Ling, or rather, Yi Ling was the Shura Empress. There was no such thing as a past life or present life. As for why the Shura Empress had turned into Yi Ling, she did not know. In front of Yi Xian, Yi Ling said softly, Come with me. After saying that, she walked towards an underground entrance in the distance. Yi Xian followed. Soon, Yi Ling led Yi Xian to a deep underground area. Deep in this area, Yi Xian saw pitch-black iron pillars around him. These iron pillars were entwined with blood-red chains, and in the middle of these iron pillars was a huge hole that was emitting black flames. In the surroundings, there were also some experts in golden armor. Seeing Yi Ling, these experts all knelt on the ground. Yi Ling waved her jade-like hand lightly, Rise. The experts around her all stood up. Yi Ling looked at the huge hole and said softly, That is the real hell. Yi Xian looked at the hole. Yi Ling said, My duty is to guard this place, and now, those old geezers down there are getting more and more restless, so I have to go down. Yi Xian said in a low voice, You want me to go down with you? Yi Ling did not say anything. At this moment, Lian Xian suddenly said, "Big brother, can't you have some self-awareness? Even she can only guard this place. Can you imagine how terrifying this place is? What can you do if you go down with him? Drag him down?" Yi Xian, at this moment, Yi Ling suddenly said, "While I go down, you can stay here. Under normal circumstances, no one will dare to come here to cause trouble for you." Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. So, Yi Ling wanted him to come to this place to take refuge. Yi Xian said, "All right. However, if I'm here with you, they..." As he spoke, he looked at the golden armored guards around him. He had to admit that these people were really strong. If these people went to the Worldwide Academy, they would definitely be able to sweep away the entire Worldwide Academy. Too powerful. Meanwhile, Yi Ling spoke abruptly, "They wouldn't dare to disrespect you while you're here. However, you can't ask them to leave as well." When she spoke up to here, she paused for a moment and said, "It's not impossible, but don't ask them to leave this place at will." Yi Xian asked, "Can I dispatch them?" Yi Ling nodded. "Don't mess around." Yi Xian smiled and said, "I won't." Yi Ling opened his palm and a black token appeared in front of Yi Xian. "This is the Azura order. Seeing it is the same as seeing me." Yi Xian put away the Azura order and looked down at the cave entrance. "Is it dangerous?" Yi Ling nodded. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said softly, "Be careful." At this moment, a feeling of helplessness arose in his heart. He wanted to go down with Yi Ling, but things were different now. If he went down there, he would be a burden to Yi Ling. He would be a burden. As if she knew what Yi Xian was thinking, Yi Ling suddenly said softly, "You've done a lot for me in the past. Now," Yi Xian suddenly said, "you're my younger sister. I'm willing to do anything for you, and it's only right and proper." Yi Ling gazed at Yi Xian for a short while, and then she said softly, "Live well." As soon as she finished speaking, she entered the black hole. It didn't take long for a hysterical roar to resound from within. Yi Xian's expression became solemn when he saw this. "Miss Lian Xian, what kind of place is that?" Lian Xian said, "Azura Hell. It's a true hell." The previous Azura Lord looked for Master, and he hoped that Master would destroy that place. Master went down there, but for some reason, he didn't do anything. At this point, she paused, and then continued, "There are many dangerous and unknown places in this world. In fact, the most dangerous places are the Void, the Boundless Dungeon, and the Land of Immortality. Those three places are really dangerous." Yi Xian said solemnly, "I don't know if she'll be in danger." Lian Xian said, "Don't worry. With her strength, it's very difficult for her to die. You have to work hard to improve your strength. Don't forget, that woman only promised not to attack you for a year. Moreover, this woman's words are like farts most of the time. If she suddenly changes her mind one day and comes looking for you, and Yi Ling isn't here, then you can just wait for death." Zhang Wenxiu. Yi Xian nodded. He had to improve his strength as soon as possible. At this moment, two old men suddenly appeared in front of him. These two old men were the two old men who followed Yi Ling. Yi Xian looked at them. "Seniors, how should I address you?" One of the old men said, "Ah Tian." The other old man glanced at Yi Xian. "Ah Di. Heaven and earth." Yi Xian said, "Seniors, I'll be staying here for a period of time. Is there a problem?" Ah Tian shook his head, "No problem. You're Master's relative, so you should stay here." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Seniors, this junior has something to ask." Ah Tendo said, "Please speak." Yi Xian said, "Is Ling reincarnated?" Ah Tian shook his head, "Not really. Because if she reincarnated, in theory, she can't remember her past life, and it's not like she took over. As for why she became your sister, we don't know either. Only Master knows the reason." Yi Xian nodded, "Then I'll ask her when the time comes." Then, he looked at the two old men, "Can I use the resources here?" The two old men were speechless. Yi Xian asked again, you should be able to, right? Tian nodded, yes. What are you going to use? Yi Xian said solemnly, swords. I need some good swords. Tian nodded, wait a moment. Then, he turned and left. At this moment, Di suddenly said, Master has never cared about anyone. You're the first. Yi Xian said, I'm her brother. Di wanted to say something but stopped. Yi Xian smiled, Senior, are you trying to say that I'm too weak to be her brother? Di glanced at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Obviously, it was a tacit agreement. Yi Xian smiled, I'll work hard to become stronger. Di nodded slightly, Sir, you're a genius. Among the younger generation, there aren't many who are stronger than you. With your talent, your future is limitless. As for Yi Xian, the two of them did not have any other thoughts. Because Yi Xian was monstrous enough. Although Yi Xian's current strength was not particularly strong, one should not only look at the present, but also look at the future. At this moment, Tian suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. He opened his palm, and 3 swords appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at the 3 swords and said softly, it's time to increase my realm. With that, he picked up a sword and stabbed it into his abdomen. Tian and the old man were speechless. At the Worldwide Academy. After Zhang Wenxiu left the Shura land, she returned to the Worldwide Academy. When she saw Zhang Wenxiu, Lin Xiaoshu and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. Although this woman had a bad temper, the Worldwide Academy could not afford to lose her now. Right now, the Worldwide Academy needed a super strong person to guard it. Lin Xiaoshu looked at Zhang Wenxiu who had returned. Then Yi Xian, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, Scram. Lin Xiaoshu's expression froze. Zhang Wenxiu did not care about the crowd. She walked towards a large hall below. That was where the Worldwide Library was located. Soon, Zhang Wenxiu arrived in front of the Worldwide Library. The person guarding the front of the library was the old man. Seeing Zhang Wenxiu, the old man looked at Zhang Wenxiu. It's you. Zhang Wenxiu's face was expressionless. You're not dead yet. The old man said softly, I can still live for a few more years. Zhang Wenxiu looked behind the old man. Back then, it was this library that caused my academy to fall apart. As she spoke, a wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of her mouth. Teacher, oh, teacher, when you were here, all those students were obedient like cats, yet as soon as you vanished, all of them impatiently wanted the treasures you left behind. If you were still here, wouldn't you be very disappointed? In fact, she no longer had any nostalgia for the Worldwide Academy. If this place was not founded by the Prophet, she would have personally destroyed the people of the Worldwide Academy. Back then, the Worldwide Academy could be said to be full of talents. Other than the 6 headmasters, there were 3 grand scholars and 2 great scholars. In addition, there were countless talents in the Worldwide Academy. These people could be said to be the most outstanding people in the 5 dimensions. However, with the departure of the Prophet, most people became greedy. Some people even did not want to look for the Prophet. This was also the reason why she left in the first place. Hearing Zhang Wenxiu's words, the old man said softly, people's hearts, human nature. Zhang Wenxiu said softly, you should have met that person. What do you think? The old man asked, that young man? Zhang Wenxiu nodded. The old man was silent for a moment. Very good. To be able to make Xiao Ta recognize him as his master, he must be extraordinary. At this point, he shook his head slightly and said, actually, it would have been better to directly accept this person into the academy. Zhang Wenxiu said softly, this person is not fated with the academy. The old man sighed softly. Wenxiu, you've been outside for so many years. Have you found teacher's whereabouts? Zhang Wenxiu shook her head. Not at all. The old man said in a low voice, with teacher's character, he would not disappear for no reason. I think that his disappearance back then might have been due to an unexpected situation. Zhang Wenxiu squinted her eyes. What are you trying to say? The old man shook his head and did not speak. Zhang Wenxiu said softly, with teacher's strength, no one in the fifth dimension could hurt him back then. The old man said in a low voice, then there is only one possibility. Zhang Wenxiu nodded. Then teacher disappeared on his own. With his personality, he definitely wouldn't leave without giving us an explanation. So, I'm guessing that he probably didn't expect himself to disappear. Speaking to there, she paused for a moment before continuing, just what was teacher doing to make himself disappear? The old man suddenly said, I wonder if teacher has any news about him. Female teacher. Zhang Wenxiu glanced at the world-dimensional bookstore, then turned around and left. The old man suddenly said, what are your plans? Zhang Wenxiu stopped and said softly, although I don't want to manage this broken academy, it was left behind by teacher. Before teacher returns, I have to look after it for him. The old man asked again, then, Yi Xian, what are you going to do? Zhang Wenxiu was expressionless. This person is quite mysterious. Behind him is not only the mysterious woman in plain dress, but also the Shura Empress. Why do we have to become enemies with him? Are we too full? The old man said, so many people died in the academy. Zhang Wenxiu's eyes turned cold. They died because they were stupid. They deserved it. After saying this, she quickly disappeared into the distance. Chapter 899. Fu Wenzong. Inside the Rune Palace, all the Fu Wenzong powerhouses had gathered. Shen Xinghe's face was gloomy. The faces of all the Fu Wenzong powerhouses in the palace were unsightly. Zhang Wenxiu had appeared. Fu Wenzong was no stranger to this woman. She could be said to be the scariest person in the worldwide academy. This was because the prophet and the female teacher were reasonable, but this woman was not reasonable at all. Moreover, she was extremely powerful. If this woman came to Fu Wenzong would not be able to stop her. At this moment, Lu Yong suddenly said, Senior brother, don't worry too much. With that woman's temper, she hasn't come yet. I think she won't come. Shen Xinghe nodded. No matter what, we have to be careful of this person. As he said this, he looked at Lu Yong. Is there any news of Little Grandmaster? Lu Yong nodded. Little Grandmaster has contacted me. He is safe and sound. Don't worry. Hearing this, Shen Xinghe nodded slightly. That's good. As he said this, he looked into the distance and said softly, I'm afraid the five-dimensional universe will not be peaceful soon. We should not stick to the rules. Junior brother, follow me. As he said this, he turned around and walked into the depths of the palace. Lu Yong was silent for a moment before he followed. Azura Hell. At this moment, Yi Xian was sitting cross-legged on a stone block. His body exuded a powerful aura. Behind him were Ah Tian and Ah Di. The two of them were Yi Xian's bodyguards. After about an hour, Yi Xian suddenly picked up a sword and stabbed it into his abdomen. Boom! A wave of pure energy spread out from his body. Behind Yi Xian, the two elders looked at each other. They had to admit that they were very curious about Yi Xian's cultivation method. Yi Xian's cultivation method was too unique. Eating swords? They had never seen such a cultivation technique before. Approximately 2 hours later, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. A powerful aura swept out from his body like a tidal wave. 2 streams of air were emitted from his body, one yin and one yang. Yin-yang realm. Yi Xian stood up and looked at his hands. Above the yin-yang realm was the life and death realm, and above the life and death realm was the heavenly fate realm. After the heavenly fate realm was karma, and finally, reincarnation. To put it simply, his current realm was still on the low side. However, he did not dare to continue. His top priority now was to stabilize his realm. Meanwhile, Tian suddenly said, what cultivation technique is this? Yi Xian collected his thoughts and said with a smile, "A senior taught me how to use the sword as my dantian." Ah Tian said softly, "Very special." Yi Xian smiled and did not say anything. The more he read, the more he found the cultivation method the woman in the plain dress had taught him dreadful. After devouring swords and cultivating a sword body, he was now immune to almost all swords. It could be said that even the executing heaven sword couldn't hurt him. With his current strength, he could even devour the executing heaven sword. Yi Xian looked into the distance and said softly, "When will she come back?" Tian said in a deep voice, "I don't know." Yi Xian looked at Tian, "Senior, what kind of existences are suppressed in the Azura Hell?" Tendo said, "Evil spirits, vengeful spirits, and some special existences." Yi Xian asked again, "Is she in danger?" Tian said in a deep voice, "Master is extremely powerful. Those random things are no match for her." Yi Xian nodded slightly, "I hope everything is fine." Tian was about to speak when his expression suddenly changed. Yi Xian and Di looked at Tian. Tian said in a deep voice, "I lost contact with Master." "Lost contact?" Yi Xian frowned, "What do you mean?" Tian said in a deep voice, "When Master left, she kept in contact with me. But just now, that contact was suddenly cut off." Yi Xian frowned, "Did something happen?" Tian shook his head, "I don't know." Yi Xian said, "Let's try to contact her." Tian nodded and closed his eyes slowly. After a while, his expression became more and more unsightly. He looked at Yi Xian and shook his head, "I can't contact her. Something has happened." Yi Xian didn't hesitate and turned to walk in the direction of the Azura Hell. Tian hurriedly stood in front of Yi Xian. "What are you going to do?" Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "I'm going to look for her." Tian shook his head, "With your strength, it's too dangerous to go there. Moreover, if anything happens to Master, it's not something you can solve." "Bullshit." Yi Xian suddenly said angrily, "Am I very weak?" Tian nodded honestly. Yi Xian took a deep breath and said, "Senior, I apologize for my tone just now. But I'm still worried, so I'm going there myself." Tian said in a low voice, "Calm down first. I'll go take a look myself. If anything happens, I'll let you know." Yi Xian was about to speak when Lian Xian spoke abruptly, "He's much stronger than you. Let him go take a look first." Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he nodded, "Senior, be careful." Tian nodded slightly, and then he turned around and left. Yi Xian slowly clenched his fists. Actually, he knew that Yi Ling was very strong, but he was still very worried. At the side, Di glanced at Yi Xian. "Actually, you should take care of yourself." Yi Xian fell silent. Di continued, "I have no ill intentions. That Xiao Ta is with you, and many people won't give up on you. If it weren't for you, even Master wouldn't have given up on this pagoda. Because there's something that Master wants in the Worldwide Academy." Yi Xian nodded, "I know." In the four-dimensional universe, Yi Ling had almost taken the prison pagoda, but in the end, Yi Ling had chosen not to do so. After coming to the five-dimensional universe, the prison pagoda had been taken away by someone. He already knew that it was Yi Ling who had taken it, and Yi Ling had returned it to him. At this moment, Di said, "The treasures left behind by the Prophet are something that even the 6 great experts would be tempted by, especially those who are unable to advance any further. The Prophet's study can be said to be their last hope. However, the only way to open the study is with the prison pagoda in your hands. So, those people won't let you go, so you better be mentally prepared." Yi Xian nodded, "I know." Di was about to speak, but at this moment, he also frowned. Yi Xian hurriedly said, "What's the matter?" Di said in a low voice, "I've lost contact with Tian. There's a problem." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Something must have happened down there." Di said, "I'll go take a look." Yi Xian shook his head, "No, I'll go." Di looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian said in a low voice, "My concealment method is very special. As long as I don't attack others, it's very difficult for others to discover me." Di wanted to say something, but Yi Xian turned around and left. He was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the distance. Di sighed softly. This guy. He hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he chose not to follow. After a while, Yi Xian arrived at the entrance of hell. Before he entered, Yi Xian felt danger. However, he did not hesitate and directly entered hell. As soon as he entered hell, a cold aura hit him in the face, and it was bone-chilling. Not only that, but there were some ferocious-looking ghosts floating around him. These ghosts were staring at him, and their gazes made him shudder. Yi Xian was a little afraid, but soon, he seemed to think of something, and his eyes suddenly lit up. What were these things around him? They were ghosts. What kind of existence were ghosts? They were souls. Why should he be afraid of souls? At this moment, an evil spirit suddenly pounced at him from afar. Yi Xian took out the soul-suppressing sword, and the soul-suppressing sword flew out. The evil spirit was instantly absorbed by the soul-suppressing sword, and it did not even have a chance to resist. At this time, the evil spirits around him retreated, and their eyes were filled with fear. Obviously, they were very afraid of the soul-suppressing sword in Yi Xian's hand. Meanwhile, the corner of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. Originally, coming to this place was a little dangerous, but now it seemed that not only would there be no danger, but there might also be a chance. The soul-suppressing sword, this sword could devour souls to evolve. Of course, his focus now was not to devour these evil spirits, but to find Yi Ling. Yi Xian glanced around, and the next moment, he disappeared. This time, he directly escaped into the realm of emptiness. Although he had the soul-suppressing sword, he did not dare to underestimate this place. The moment he disappeared, a divine sense suddenly swept past his position. Yi Xian's expression suddenly became solemn. Someone had discovered him. However, at this time, the divine sense disappeared again. Yi Xian looked into the distance, and in his line of sight, there was a large number of endless ghosts floating around. Yi Xian frowned. What exactly is this place? Suddenly, a voice came from afar, and the ghosts in the surroundings suddenly turned around and pounced towards the distance. Yi Xian hurriedly flew over, and in next to no time, he saw a person, and it was Tian. At this moment, Tian was surrounded by tens of thousands of evil spirits, and the person in the lead was a man in red clothes. This person was a soul body as well, and he held a blood-red sword in his hand, and his aura was extremely strong. At this moment, the man in red clothes suddenly turned around and looked at Yi Xian's position. Yi Xian's face sank. This fellow wouldn't have discovered me, right? At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly enveloped him. Yi Xian knew that the other party had discovered him. Yi Xian stopped concealing himself and walked out directly. As soon as he walked out, countless evil spirits pounced towards him. Yi Xian lit up the soul-suppressing sword, and the evil spirits instantly retreated like a receding tide. Yi Xian looked at the man in red clothes, and the man in red clothes grinned. Another one. Yi Xian walked towards the man in red clothes. What about her? The man in red clothes smiled. Are you talking about the Shura Empress? Yi Xian nodded. The man in red clothes smiled even more brilliantly. I'm telling you seriously, the Emperor of the Dead has awakened. She will die, and she will die miserably. Haha. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of the man in red clothes. The man in red clothes raised his sword and stabbed. This sword was incomparably powerful, but Yi Xian did not dodge, and let the sword stab into his abdomen. The man in red clothes was stunned. The soul-suppressing sword in Yi Xian's hand was placed in between the man's eyebrows. I'm telling you seriously, you will die, and you will die miserably, very miserably. As soon as he finished speaking, he stabbed, then pulled out, then stabbed, pulled out, stabbed, pulled out, stabbed again, and this cycle continued. Chapter 900. In the field, countless wraiths and evil spirits roared, but none dared to attack. They were afraid of Yi Xian's soul-suppressing sword. Just like that, the evil spirit in red was killed by Yi Xian. At the side, Tian looked at Yi Xian, shocked. He knew the strength of the man in red. It was the man who held him back just now, but he did not expect Yi Xian to kill him with one strike. What kind of monster was this? Yi Xian looked at Tian. Senior, you go back first. Tian said, let's go back together. Master is so powerful, she will be fine. Yi Xian shook his head, I'm still worried. After that, he turned and looked into the distance. He could not see the end, and in this godforsaken place, evil spirits were everywhere. What kind of place was this? Yi Xian frowned slightly. Tendo said, I'll go with you. Yi Xian shook his head, no need, it's more convenient for me to go alone. Tian wanted to say something, but Yi Xian suddenly said, Senior, don't waste time. After that, he disappeared into the distance. Tian was silent for a moment, then turned and left. He also realized that he could not do anything here. Even if Yi Ling was in danger, he could not help. What could he do if even Yi Ling could not solve the danger? In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. He went into the land of emptiness again. Yi Xian thought, Miss Lian Xian, how did the man in red discover me? After a moment, Lian Xian said, the space you appeared in is a domain. Yi Xian's face darkened, don't scare me. Lian Xian said, this is a domain, you are in someone else's domain. I advise you to leave, while you can. In someone else's domain. Yi Xian looked around, can you sense Dao Ling, Er's position? Lian Xian said, are you sure you won't leave? Let me tell you, even if she's really in danger, it's not something you can handle. So, I think you should take care of yourself first. Yi Xian said solemnly, after coming to this place, I have a bad feeling. Lian Xian sighed softly. Let me tell you about this place. I might be one of the few people who know the history of this place. In the beginning, this place was just a battlefield. Later on, because more and more people died, the souls of those who died here gathered in this place. As time passed, more and more evil spirits and ghosts appeared here. However, at that time, they weren't much of a threat. Until one day, a person suddenly appeared here. This person was the dead emperor that the red-clothed man mentioned. This person refined this place into hell, and the one who managed this place in the past was the Azura kingdom. He was also the ancestor of your little sister. When she spoke up to hear, she paused for a moment and said, the dead emperor almost turned the entire Azura kingdom into hell. Unfortunately, he failed. Then, he was suppressed in this place. The Azura royal family has been trying to kill this dead emperor for countless years, but to no avail. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, is the emperor of the dead very strong? Lian Xian said, very strong. In the past, the Azura lord invited Master to this place, hoping that Master could kill this dead emperor. However, for some unknown reason, Master didn't choose to do so. Yi Xian frowned, is it because he didn't have the ability to kill it? Lian Xian said, impossible. Master definitely had the ability to kill this dead emperor, but he didn't. There must be some other reason. Also, you have to understand something. Yi Ling is so strong, but he still couldn't destroy this place. Think about it, can this place be simple? Really, this place isn't something you should come to at your current level. Go somewhere else to train. When your level increases, you can come here to try. Yi Xian smiled bitterly, I also want to do that, but Ling Er, as he spoke, he looked into the distance and said softly, I'm still worried. Lian Xian asked, what can you do? Yi Xian said softly, I don't want to wait outside, and I don't want to regret it, even if it means death. As he spoke, he disappeared on the spot. In the prison pagoda, Lian Xian sighed softly. She had to say, this Yi Ling was Yi Xian's nemesis. As long as Yi Ling was involved, Yi Xian, who was usually very smart, would turn into an idiot. There was no saving him. Lian Xian shook her head and didn't say anything else. She knew that it was useless no matter what she said. Along the way, Yi Xian was very careful. Along the way, he saw countless evil souls. Moreover, the deeper he went, the stronger the aura of these evil souls. In fact, he really wanted to take out the soul-suppressing sword and absorb all these evil souls. If he absorbed all the evil souls here, the soul-suppressing sword would definitely undergo a qualitative transformation. There were simply too many evil souls in this place. The soul-suppressing sword was also a little restless. However, he still didn't dare to do so. This place was not simple. If he did so, he might not even know how he died. Moreover, his goal this time was to find Yi Ling. Thinking of Yi Ling, Yi Xian began to speed up. About an hour later, Yi Xian found a city in the distance. The city was completely black and there were all kinds of evil souls floating around it. And in the sky above the city, Yi Xian saw Yi Ling. At this moment, Yi Ling was floating above the city. Around her floated 4 old men in black robes. The 4 old men held strange red hooks in their hands. And above Yi Ling's head, there was a huge black seal. This seal constantly emitted a black light that enveloped Yi Ling below. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Miss Lian Xian, what is that thing? It looks very powerful. Can you hook it up?" Lian Xian was speechless. At this moment, Yi Ling suddenly waved her right hand in the distance. A powerful force shook out from her sleeve. This force was like a tidal wave that shook the 4 old men around her. Seeing that Yi Ling suddenly made a move, the 4 old men hurriedly formed a hand seal and began to quickly chant. Soon, the huge black seal above Yi Ling's head suddenly trembled violently. Countless black lights swept down from the sky. These black lights directly drowned Yi Ling's power. Rumble. The entire sky began to tremble violently. The surrounding space violently undulated like a wave due to the 2 powerful forces. It was extremely terrifying. Yi Xian became nervous. Although he knew that Yi Ling was extremely powerful, he couldn't help but start to worry. In the sky, Yi Ling's face was expressionless. She raised her head to look at the huge black seal and said indifferently, "The seal of life and death. You're quite capable. You actually activated this thing." At this moment, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yi Ling. The middle-aged man was a soul body as well. He held a spear in his hand. He looked at Yi Ling and smiled, "Shura Empress, you're even more powerful than before." Yi Ling looked at the middle-aged man and ridiculed, "Chiyu, you finally dared to come out after hiding for so many years?" The man called Chiyu smiled, "Shura Empress, I lured you here today because I wanted to give you a big gift." Haha. Yi Ling slapped out with a backhand palm. A blood-red scythe suddenly flew out from her palm. As soon as the scythe appeared, heaven and earth were directly torn apart. Chiyu's expression changed slightly when he witnessed this scene. He didn't dare act carelessly, and he used all his strength to stab with the spear in his hand. The howl of a vicious soul suddenly resounded from the tip of the spear. Yi Xian shook his head. This man's spear technique is even worse than Zhang Wenxiu. In the sky, the spear had just come into contact with Yi Ling's scythe, and it was instantly torn apart. The scythe continued forward and slashed towards Chiyu. Chiyu's expression changed drastically when he witnessed this scene, and he hurriedly retreated. However, right at this moment, the huge black seal above Yi Ling suddenly trembled violently, and a powerful force directly suppressed Yi Ling's scythe. Yi Ling raised her head to look at the seal of life and death. She opened her palm, and the scythe appeared in her hand. In the next moment, she transformed into a ray of black light that shot into the sky, and she slashed her scythe at the seal of life and death. Rumble. The seal of life and death trembled violently, and then it cracked apart. Chiyu's expression changed drastically when he witnessed this scene, and he hurriedly said, "Attack." The 4 black-robed old men hurriedly chanted a chant. In next to no time, the entire sky suddenly started to tremble violently, and then strands of mysterious energy swept incessantly towards Yiling. In midair, Yiling had an emotionless expression on her face as she suddenly stomped her right foot on the ground. Rumble. The space in an area of over 100 kilometers cracked apart, and countless vicious souls exploded apart at this moment. Their souls were obliterated, and the mysterious energy around her vanished without a trace at this moment. Yiling looked down, and then the scythe in her hands suddenly flew forward. One of the black-robed old men didn't even have the time to react before his head flew into the air. On the other hand, another old man was just about to flee, but his head had flown into the air without the slightest sign at the instant he fled. In less than a breath of time, all 4 black-robed old men had been killed by Yiling. Yiling gazed at Qiyu. She raised her hand and waved it, and then the scythe in her hand transformed into a ray of blood-red light that slashed towards Qiyu. However, not only did Qiyu not dodge, he smiled instead. Right when the scythe was around 1.5 m away from Qiyu, it suddenly stopped moving. In midair, Yiling's beautiful brows knit together slightly. Right at this moment, she seemed to have sensed something, and she swiftly turned around to look at Yi Xian. "Let's go." Yi Xian was just about to speak when Lian Qian's voice resounded in his mind. "Leave quickly. Don't hesitate." Yi Xian turned around instinctively and fled. However, at the instant that he fled, he sensed a formidable aura appear behind him. This aura wasn't targeted at him, and it was targeted at Yiling instead. Yi Xian turned around and glanced towards the distance. In the sky above Yiling, a pair of enormous eyes had suddenly appeared there, and they were scarlet red like an ocean of blood. The Undead Emperor. In midair, Yiling's eyes narrowed slightly. "Who unsealed you?" At this moment, a sea of blood suddenly seeped out from the sky, and then it spread towards Yiling. P.S. Some readers said that they were going to provide for me. Let me tell you, you're looking down on me. I, Green Wan, would rather starve to death than bow down to mere monthly votes. Chapter 901. In the distance, Yi Xian did not leave. Instead, he chose to conceal himself. He looked at Yiling in the sky, his fists clenched tightly. Within his body, his blood began to tremble. In the sky, Yiling looked at the sea of blood, her face expressionless. Her eyes suddenly turned white, and around her, a destructive power began to gather. When the sea of blood reached Yiling's head, Yiling suddenly clenched her fists, "Destroy." As soon as she finished speaking, a white light suddenly flew out from her eyes. This white light instantly covered the sea of blood. Rumble. The surrounding space began to crumble, as countless evil spirits retreated frantically. Yi Xian also retreated rapidly. After retreating for 1,000 zhang, Yi Xian finally stopped. Yi Xian looked up at the sky, and within the white light, there were sounds of tearing. Yi Xian became nervous. At this time, the white light in the sky suddenly disappeared. When it was all gone, Yi Xian saw Yiling. Yiling was wielding a blood scythe, looking like a god of death. In front of Yiling, there was an illusory man. He wore a snow-white robe, and held a white jade fan in his hand. He did not look like an undead emperor, but more like a scholar. On his shoulder, there was a small beast the size of a palm. It was completely black, with a pair of horns on its head, and its eyes were red. The undead emperor looked at Yiling and smiled. "You're even more outstanding than your ancestor." Yiling looked at the undead emperor. "Who broke the seal for you?" The undead emperor laughed. "Can't I break through it myself?" "No, it can't be considered breaking it now. It's just that there aren't as many restrictions as before." As he spoke, he looked at Yiling. "When the seal is truly broken, you won't be able to stop me." Yiling suddenly looked around. Soon, she narrowed her eyes and said, "You lured me down here to fight with your doppelganger so that you can use my power to weaken the seal here." The undead emperor smiled and said, "Yes." Yiling nodded slightly. "Good plan." The emperor of the dead laughed. "Descendant of the Azura clan, it seems like I will have to settle the score with your ancestors in the past. Yi Ling looked at the undead emperor. Any time. The undead emperor laughed, as if he had discovered something. He suddenly looked at Yi Xian's position. When he saw Yi Xian, he smiled and said, I've heard of you. You've heard of me? Yi Xian didn't hide anymore. He walked out and looked at the undead emperor. Am I that famous now? The undead emperor smiled and said, I heard that the prophet Xiao Ta is with you. Yi Xian's face sank. So that's what the undead emperor was planning. The undead emperor suddenly smiled and said, please take care of it for me for now. When I come out, I will personally take it. As he spoke, his body gradually became illusory. Yi Xian suddenly asked, why didn't the prophet kill you back then? The prophet. The undead emperor was slightly startled. He then shook his head and smiled, that's a good question. The prophet indeed had the strength to kill me back then. He was also the only one who had the strength to completely destroy me. Unfortunately, he didn't do so. Yi Xian asked again, why? The undead emperor smiled and said, because everything has a cause. Why did this place turn into hell? Why would there be? Qingsheng, Yi clan, ancestral temple. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind him, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? At this moment, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral temple. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she ignored her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral temple, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a crown prince, why did you discard him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly, this is a matter of the clan, why are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral temple. She bowed again to the elders on both sides, Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He's fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged, discard him or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new crown prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed, you should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder replied coldly, then flog her 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, young master Yi Lang inherits the position of crown prince. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry. She only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, what's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed, this subordinate, Jianghu, greets the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded, you're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I'll need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply, this subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded slightly. Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back. Understood? Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu seemed to have seen something and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man wore a tight-fitting robe that was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged at Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stomped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and said, your man? As he spoke, he stomped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu. As he walked up to Yi Ling, seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed out, brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince, why did you discard him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly, this is a matter of the clan, why are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the Great Elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He's fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged, whether he discards his position or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed, you should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder replied coldly, then flog her 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, young master Yi Lang inherits the title of prince. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry. She only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. Subordinate Jianghu greets the prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the prince, I'll need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate will go through fire and water for the prince. Yi Lang nodded slightly. Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show mercy. Understood? Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged at Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and said, Your man? As he spoke, he stepped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu. As he walked up to Yi Ling, seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Chapter 902. Yi Xian understood when he heard Lian Qian's words. Everyone hoped that Yi Xian would fight to the death against the Worldwide Academy, and it would be best if the Worldwide Academy's trump card was revealed. That way, those people would be able to take advantage of the situation. Everyone was cunning. Yi Xian shook his head. Meanwhile, Lian Qian said, All of you can't make a move now. They aren't in a hurry, and all of you can't either. You have to hold your ground. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. But there's a problem, and that's the dead emperor down there. Yi Ling suddenly said, He can't come out for now. Yi Xian looked at Yi Ling. Time. Yi Ling said, I can sense that the seal down there hasn't dissipated completely, but it can only last for 3 months at most. Yi Xian asked again, Can you defeat him? Yi Ling said, I'll know after I fight him. Yi Xian fell silent. Meanwhile, Yi Ling said softly, Don't worry too much. Yi Xian nodded. Let's think of a way together. Yi Ling sized up Yi Xian and said, you need to improve your strength. Yi Xian said, I know. He could be said to have reached a bottleneck in improving his strength. Both his sword Dao and his cultivation had reached a bottleneck, and it was extremely difficult to improve further. Meanwhile, Yi Ling suddenly said, I'm going into closed-door cultivation for some time. Try not to leave this place during this period. Yi Xian looked at Yi Ling, you're going into closed-door cultivation? Yi Ling nodded. Don't leave this place rashly. Yi Xian nodded slightly. All right. Yi Ling didn't say anything else, and he just turned around and left. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Miss Lian Xian, where's your eldest sister? He remembered that Yan Jia and Yu had already gone to look for the big sister they spoke of. However, there was no news of her now. Lian Xian said, I haven't received any news from them either. However, since Big Sis said she wants to see you, she'll definitely come looking for you. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, is your elder sister strong? Lian Xian nodded. Similar to Zhang Wenxiu. Of course, our true strength lies in the gathering of all the Dao laws and cooperating with Xiao Ta. This is how we were able to escape from the fifth dimension. All the Dao laws were gathered. Yi Xian nodded. I hope they can find me soon. Lian Xian said in a low voice, there are two things you must do at the moment. The first is to improve your strength, and the second is to see if you can contact that woman in a plain dress. A woman in a plain dress. Yi Xian was silent. He also wanted to find the plain-dressed woman. With her around, that undead emperor would be a big brother. However, he didn't know where the woman in the plain dress was. Lian Xian continued, if you can't contact the woman in the plain dress, then you only have one way to go, and that is to improve your strength. Also, don't forget your talisman Dao. If you can draw a perfect 7-colored talisman, it'll be very terrifying. You should know that in the past, Fu Wenzong and Fu Xiaotian relied on their talismans to look down on the world. Yi Xian said, is the 7-colored talisman really that strong? Lian Xian said, the 7-colored talisman in your hand isn't a perfect 7-colored talisman. Moreover, you haven't been able to fully display its power. If you can perfectly display its power, you'll definitely be able to rely on it to fight against experts of Lu Shidi's level. Yi Xian thought about it and said, I'll make a trip back to Fu Wenzong. With that, he turned around and left. In the depths of hell, in the black ancient city, in a black hall, a coffin was placed in the middle of the hall. Inside the coffin was the undead emperor. Not far away from the coffin stood a woman. The woman wore a long red dress, her hair long enough to touch the ground. She had her back to the coffin, her right hand gently stroking her hair. After a while, the undead emperor suddenly said, the Shura Empress is stronger than the previous Shura country lord. The corner of the woman's mouth curled up into a horrifying smile. What, are you afraid? The undead emperor smiled, apart from the prophet, when have I ever been afraid of anyone? The prophet. After a moment of silence, the woman smiled and said softly, the prophet is really an amazing person. The undead emperor said, he personally suppressed the devouring spirit clan. Don't you hate him? The woman smiled, do you hate him? The undead emperor was silent for a moment, then said, no. The woman smiled and asked, why? The undead emperor said softly, back then, he had the strength to destroy me and this place, but he didn't. Instead, he tried his best to help us here. At that time, I also promised him that if he could really help the evil spirits of this place, I would let go of all my hatred and not bring disaster to this world. Unfortunately, he left and never returned. Later, I found out that he disappeared. After saying that, he paused, then said, a person as powerful as he is, no one can kill him. The woman smiled and said, according to our investigation, he should not have been killed by someone. He disappeared on his own. The undead emperor said in a deep voice, do you know where he is now? The woman shook her head, I don't know. As for whether he will appear in the future, no one knows. The undead emperor said, what do you want? The woman smiled, what do you think? The undead emperor said, although the prophet is no longer here, the outside world is not as weak as you think. The woman suddenly counted with her fingers, let me count. Shura Empress, female teacher, old tomb keeper, Limubai, human snow, and the crippled woman who has disappeared for a long time. There should only be these 6 people who can threaten the devouring spirit clan. The undead emperor said, why, do you have a way to deal with these 6 people? The woman smiled, slowly, we will start with this Shura Empress. After saying that, she walked outside. Behind her, the undead emperor suddenly said, be careful of that Yi Xian. Yi Xian. The woman suddenly said, he is not the one who should be careful, but the swordsman behind him. We still don't know how strong she is. The undead emperor asked, why? The woman in red said, because she kills everyone with a single strike. The undead emperor said, in the 4th dimension? The woman in red shook her head, although it is in the 4th dimension, we cannot underestimate her. My clan values this woman very much. However, she did not come to the 5th dimension and is still wandering in the 4th dimension. Therefore, we do not have much conflict with her, and we do not plan to provoke her. After saying that, she looked up at the sky and said softly, at most 3 months, your seal will be completely erased. That will be the day of your battle with the Shura Empress. Don't worry, our people will help you. The undead emperor smiled, I can kill her. The woman in red asked, 100% sure? The undead emperor was silent. The woman in red smiled, we want 100% sure, no accidents can happen. After saying that, she turned and disappeared into the distance. Inside the palace, the coffin began to tremble, and around it, something seemed to be disappearing bit by bit. Fu Wenzong. After Yi Xian returned to Fu Wenzong, he went into seclusion to draw runes. Target, 7 color runes. All the elders of Fu Wenzong and Shenxinghe surrounded Yi Xian, guiding Yi Xian. Right now, Yi Xian was Fu Wenzong's hope. This was recognized by everyone in Fu Wenzong. Drawing a 7 color rune was not easy at all, because one had to control the 7 elements and integrate them into the rune. Among the talismans, this could be said to be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. When the entire rune sect learned that Yi Xian wanted to draw a 7-colored talisman, the entire rune sect began to teach Yi Xian about it. Yi Xian did not start at the beginning, but learned all kinds of knowledge. During the time Yi Xian was learning, the 5th dimension was very peaceful, and the worldwide academy did not come to cause trouble for Fu Wenzong. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. In the 4th dimension. At this moment, inside the main hall of Tianjiang City, Shengguan Xian, and Jianghu were busy with all kinds of government affairs. However, this time, it was not only the 2 of them, there were also a few women, all of whom were their trusted aides. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared at the entrance of the main hall. As soon as this old man appeared, many experts suddenly appeared around him. At this time, Jianghu suddenly waved his hand, and the northern experts immediately retreated. The old man looked at Jianghu and the women, smiling slightly, 2 young ladies, I am Fu Wenzong elderly Qi, under the order of the young master, I am here to take you 2 to the 5th dimension. To the 5th dimension. Hearing this, the 2 women were stunned. At this time, Jianghu suddenly looked at Shengguan Xian, smiling, I said, he will not forget us, why are you still worried? Shengguan Xian's small face turned red, little Jiu, you understand him. Jianghu shook his head and smiled, actually, you know him better than I do, but you are anxious and can't keep your cool. Shengguan Xian smiled, indeed, I have lost my composure recently. Jianghu looked at Li Qi, seniorly, we have to deal with the northern region's matters, it won't take too long, just 3 days, is that okay? Li Qi smiled, of course. Jianghu nodded, looking at Shengguan Xian, gather all the major forces, and elect a new alliance leader. Shengguan Xian said in a deep voice, do we want to give up here? Jianghu smiled, it's not giving up, it's just that we have to free up our hands. Moreover, if we continue to manage it like this, after a long time, there will be problems. Shang Wanxian nodded, that's true, but I am still a bit reluctant to leave this place. Jianghu said, then you will stay here? Shang Wanxian hurriedly shook her head, I still want to see the fifth dimension, and he sent people to pick us up, there must be something he wants us to do. Sigh, the two of us are free tools. Jianghu smiled, then we will ask him for some benefits. The corners of Shang Wanxian's mouth curled up slightly, all right. In next to no time, the two of them started to deal with the northern region's matters. Many powers in the northern region tried to persuade them to stay, but they only stayed symbolically. Because many people hoped that the two of them would leave, because if the two of them didn't leave, then they wouldn't have a chance to take over. After they finished dealing with the northern region's matters, the two of them followed Li Qi to the fifth dimension. For the sake of ensuring their safety, Fu Wenzong had even sent over 10 experts to escort them in secret. However, right when they had just left the fourth dimension and arrived at the fifth dimension, a woman in a red dress suddenly appeared in front of them. Li Qi's expression changed greatly when he saw this woman. Who are you? The woman in a red dress smiled lightly, and then she glanced at Jianghu and Shang Wanxian before she said, I would like to invite the two of you over as guests. I wonder if the two of you can give me some face? Jianghu looked at the woman in a red dress, and after a short moment, she said in a light voice, all right, but they have to be kept alive. As she spoke, she paused for a moment and said, please let them be kept alive. The corners of the woman in a red dress curled up slightly, no. As she spoke, she was about to attack, but right at this moment, a voice suddenly came from the side, these people, I will protect them. The woman in a red dress turned around and looked over, and there, a woman riding a pig was slowly coming over. P.S. Tonsillitis caused by a cold, sore throat, dizzy, head swelling. Yesterday afternoon, my fever reached 40 degrees, really uncomfortable. Everyone, please take care of your health. Chapter 903. The girl was riding on a small white pig. The pig was very white and fat, and it trembled as it walked. On the girl's shoulder was a large saber, and there was an evil smile on her face. She looked somewhat cynical. Jianghu and Shang Wanxian looked at each other, and there was a trace of doubt in their eyes. Obviously, they did not know this pig-riding girl. The girl in the red dress sized up the pig-riding girl, and said with a smile, how should I address you? The pig-riding girl grinned, you guess? The girl in the red dress smiled, you guess if I guess or not? The pig-riding girl smiled, I guess if you guess or not. After saying that, she suddenly rushed out. The saber arrived. The girl in the red dress stood in the same place, and her expression was calm. She opened her palm, and a dim light flew out from her palm. Boom! The dim light directly shattered, and the saber fell to the ground, but the girl in the red dress had already appeared several hundred feet away. At this time, the pig-riding girl suddenly swung her saber. Chi! In the field, a tearing sound suddenly rang out. In the distance, the girl in the red dress put her hands together, and then gently pulled them to both sides. In an instant, a dim light shield appeared in front of her, and at this time, the saber arrived. Boom! The dim light shield directly exploded, but the girl in the red dress had already retreated more than 100 feet away. The pig-riding girl waved her right hand, and the large saber flew back into her hand. In the distance, the girl in the red dress stared at her, who are you? The pig-riding girl grinned, you guess again. The girl in the red dress smiled, it seems that this little four-dimensional universe is really full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Interesting. After saying that, she had already disappeared. In the same place, Jianghu looked at the pig-riding girl, senior is? The pig-riding girl smiled, let's go. After saying that, she slowly rode her pig riding away, and as she walked, she hummed, Big Sister told me to patrol the mountain. In the same place, Jianghu was silent for a moment and said, let's go. Soon, the group disappeared at the end of the horizon. Fu Wenzong. During this period of time, Yi Xian had been crazily learning all kinds of knowledge, and Fu Wenzong could be said to have given his all for him. After studying for about a month, Yi Xian finally started writing. In fact, drawing runes, especially 7-colored talismans, required a lot of equipment and tools. However, Yi Xian didn't need to worry about these things, because Fu Wenzong had prepared everything for him. Apart from that, when he was drawing the 7-colored talisman, he had 6 super rune masters by his side to guide him. Of course, whether he could succeed or not depended on himself. They all failed at the very beginning. This was because fusing the 7 different types of energy together was truly too difficult. However, Yi Xian did not give up. About a month later, Yi Xian suddenly left the hall. At this time, Shen Xinghe walked to his side and said with a smile, "Little Grand Master, don't be discouraged." Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "I'm not discouraged. It's just that I feel a little restless after so many failures." Shen Xinghe laughed. "You're already very calm. In the past, I also encountered a similar situation. At that time, I was really restless, so I was put in seclusion by my master for a full half a year." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "This 7-colored talisman is really too difficult to draw. I can't make even the slightest mistake." Shen Xinghe smiled. "It's normal, if 7-colored talisman is so easy to draw, I, Fu Wenzong, would have already dominated the 5th dimension." Then, he lightly patted Yi Xian's shoulder. "Don't be discouraged, failure isn't scary, what's scary is the fear of failure." Yi Xian smiled. "I'm not afraid of failure." Qingsheng, Yi family, ancestral temple. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man wearing a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi family's elders. "Why?" At this time, a timid voice suddenly resounded in the ancestral temple. Everyone looked over and saw a little girl standing at the door. The little girl was about 12 or 13 years old. Her 2 small hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face was sickly pale, looking somewhat weak, and there was a trace of timidity in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the family wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling slightly bowed to the people in the ancestral temple, and timidly said, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is a crown prince. Why did you waste him for no reason?" The great elder coldly looked at Yi Ling. "This is a family matter, why are you interrupting? Leave." Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the great elder. However, she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral temple. Once again, she bowed to the elders. "Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li family for the rights to the mine. He is fighting for the family, and his life is uncertain. But the family is using a groundless excuse to remove him from the crown prince position. This is really unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he is removed or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new crown prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder coldly replied, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi family's guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and angrily said, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the family for so many years, and even now, he is fighting for the family. The family is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince, Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the crown prince's position, and it's everyone's wish. What are you shouting for?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. This subordinate, Jianghu, greets the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I need 10 personal guards. From now on, you can be my personal guard. Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the crown prince, and I'm willing to die 1,000 deaths. Yi Lang nodded. Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Do not hold back. Understood. Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time, Jianghu seemed to have seen something, and he suddenly stopped. Within the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was dressed in a tight-fitting robe that was tattered, and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Within the ancestral hall, all the elders were frowning. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and he charged towards Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, your man? As he spoke, he stomped down on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, as she asked timidly, Great Elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason? The Great Elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave. Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the Great Elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent. The great elder suddenly raged, whether he's crippled or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan's guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of prince. What are you shouting about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and smiled, "What's your name?" The guard quickly bowed. "This subordinate, Jianghu, greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded, "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I'll need 10 guards. From now on, you'll be my guard." Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed, and quickly bowed deeply. "This subordinate will go through fire and water for the prince, and I'll do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded, "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back, understand?" Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder squinted his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pang! Jianghu felt dizzy, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and rushed towards Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu, and kicked Jianghu's head. Pang! Chapter 904. Yi Xian was quite surprised as well. Because he hadn't expected that Li Mubai from Immortal Banished City would actually come to congratulate him. Yi Xian gazed at Shen Xinghe, and the latter chuckled, "Don't be surprised, it's just normal." Yi Xian was puzzled, "Why is that?" Shen Xinghe smiled, "Because even the 6 great experts attach importance to a divine talisman master. Even though your current strength isn't sufficient to go against them, they wouldn't dare look down upon you. You'll be able to experience the influence and terrifying strength of a divine talisman master very soon. Lu Yong nodded slightly. Yes, so long as you're willing, then you'll have countless friends. Yi Xian smiled. Is it that popular? Lu Yong smiled. It is. Especially when you're still so young, and your future is limitless. Let's not talk about all of that for now. Let's go meet this ambassador from Immortal Banished City. We can't neglect this place. As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, the three of them walked towards Fu Wenzong's guest hall. It didn't take long for them to arrive at the guest hall. Meanwhile, a young man walked over with a smile on his face. The young man's gaze descended onto Yi Xian, and he smiled. I presume your brother Yi. Yi Xian nodded. I'm Yi Xian. May I know who you are? The young man smiled. Li Shijuan. Shen Xinghe's voice suddenly resounded within Yi Xian's mind. The junior city governor of Immortal Banished City, Li Mubai, is his uncle. Yi Xian grinned. So it's brotherly, please sit. Li Shijuan smiled. Brother Yi, you're a straightforward person, so I won't beat around the bush. I've come this time to ask for a favor. A favor. Yi Xian smiled. May I know what it is? Li Shijuan said, I want to ask Brother Yi for a perfect 7-colored talisman. Yi Xian picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip without saying anything. Li Shijuan added, to tell you the truth, Uncle wanted it. Yi Xian smiled. So it's Senior Li who wants it? Li Shijuan nodded. Yes. Yi Xian smiled but said nothing. Li Shijuan smiled and said, Brother Yi. Yi Xian suddenly said, Brother Li, I'm sorry, I'm busy. The smile on Li Shijuan's face gradually vanished. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly stood up and said with a smile, Brother Li, I still have something to do, so forgive me for not accompanying you. With that, he turned around and left. Brother Yi. Right at this moment, Li Shijuan suddenly smiled and said, Uncle wants it. Although it was still the same sentence, the meaning was completely different. Yi Xian turned around to look at Li Shijuan and said with a smile, Brother Li, are you threatening me? Li Shijuan smiled and said, Of course not. It's just that, Brother Yi, it's better to have a friend than an enemy. What do you think? Yi Xian nodded. What you said makes a lot of sense. But Brother Li, do you think that a 7-colored talisman is very easy to craft? Li Shijuan was just about to speak when Yi Xian said, Besides that, Brother Li, you have to understand something. You've been constantly emphasizing that it's what your uncle wants. What? In your opinion, it's a great honor for me, Yi Xian, that your uncle wants me to craft a 7-colored talisman? Li Shijuan gazed at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian smiled and said, Your uncle is an expert of the current age, and he's very formidable. However, I, Yi Xian, don't want to curry favor with him. As he spoke, he looked at Lu Yong. Elder Lu, send this distinguished guest from Immortal Banished City off for me. After saying that, he quickly disappeared into the distance. In fact, he also wanted to befriend Immortal Banished City, but Li Mubai didn't have the slightest sincerity. In addition, Li Shijuan's attitude might seem respectful on the surface, but he was very arrogant in his bones. He thought that he was looking for Yi Xian. Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From this moment on, Yi Xian's position as crown prince will be removed and Yi Lang will succeed him. The speaker was an old man dressed in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a somewhat timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yiling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she rushed over despite her illness. The black-robed old man frowned. Yiling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yiling bowed to everyone in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Grand Elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the crown prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason? The Grand Elder looked coldly at Yiling. This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for? Leave. Yiling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the Great Elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent. The Grand Elder suddenly raged, whether he's crippled or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new crown prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. He should be flogged 30 times as a warning. The Grand Elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan's guards rushed in. Yiling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of crown prince. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry. She only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed, This subordinate, Jianghu, greets the crown prince. Yi Lang nodded, You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I'll need 10 guards. From now on, you'll be my guard. Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply, This subordinate will go through fire and water for the crown prince. I'll risk my life for you. Yi Lang nodded, Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Do not hold back. Understood. Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time, Jianghu seemed to have seen something, and he suddenly stopped. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside the hall. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Within the ancestral hall, all the elders were frowning. The Great Elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there. He charged towards Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, Your man? As he spoke, he stomped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save save me." Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Peng! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides, there were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she rushed over despite her illness. The old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall, as she asked timidly, "Great elder, my brother, Yi Xian, is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, why are you butting in? Leave." Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the great elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he's crippled or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. "He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder replied coldly, "Then flog him 30 times. Very quickly, Yi clan's guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of prince. What are you shouting about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap! A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Jianghu greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed, and quickly bowed deeply. "I'll go through fire and water for the prince, and I'll do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't hold back, understand?" Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe that was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang, and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there, and charged towards Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, your man? As he spoke, he stomped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed, brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu, and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Chapter 905. Yi Xian looked up into the distance when he heard that voice. Meanwhile, that voice resounded once more, come in. Yi Xian nodded slightly, and then he walked into the city under Li Shijuan's lead. Immortal banished city. Actually, it was an empty city. All along the way, besides Li Shijuan, Yi Xian didn't see a single person. Li Shijuan suddenly fell silent all along the way. When Li Shijuan brought Yi Xian to a river, he looked at the small house in the distance. Brother Yi, uncle is there. Yi Xian nodded slightly. He looked at Li Shijuan and said with a smile, I was just speaking casually. Don't take it to heart, brother Li. Li Shijuan shook his head. Listening to Yi Xian's words today is better than studying for 10 years. Brother Yi, thank you. Yi Xian smiled slightly and didn't say anything else. He walked towards the small house in the distance. Li Shijuan was silent on the spot. All these years, no matter where he went, people would be respectful to him because his uncle was Li Mubai, one of the 6 extraordinary experts in the world. Because of that, no one dared to disrespect him. All these years, he treated all of that as normal, and he was even very proud of it. But when he heard what Yi Xian said just now, he suddenly realized what right he had to be proud of. Others respected him because of his uncle, not because he was Li Shijuan. At this moment, he suddenly understood his uncle's attitude towards him all these years. It was disappointment. Over the years, his uncle had become more and more disappointed in him. He never knew the reason, but he understood at this moment. Li Shijuan smiled slightly when he thought up to this point. He looked at Yi Xian's figure in the distance. Brother Yi, thank you. Yi Xian waved his hand. It's nothing. Li Shijuan smiled, turned around, and left. At this moment, Yi Xian had already walked to the front of the small house. At this moment, the door of the small house suddenly opened, and a middle-aged man walked out. The middle-aged man wore a simple white robe and held an ancient book in his hand, and he seemed like a scholar. Li Mubai. Yi Xian cupped his fists towards Li Mubai. Senior Li. Li Mubai smiled, I have something to ask of you. I should be going to Fu Wenzong, but for some reason, I don't want to leave this place, so I can only ask my nephew to invite you. Yi Xian smiled and said, May I know why Senior is looking for this junior? Li Mubai said, I hope you can draw a 7-colored talisman for me. Yi Xian asked, what type of 7-colored talisman? Li Mubai said, soul protecting talisman. Yi Xian frowned, soul protection charm? Li Mubai nodded, a talisman specially used to protect the soul. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian nodded. All right. Li Mubai smiled and said, aren't you going to ask about the reward? Yi Xian smiled and said, since Senior asked, then I'll be straightforward. I want Senior to owe me a favor, and when I'm in trouble one day, I'll look for Senior. Li Mubai shook his head and smiled, you're really straightforward. However, I like your character. You don't play games and speak your mind. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings and said, Senior, then this junior will draw it here. Is that all right? Li Mubai nodded, all right. No one will disturb you. If you need anything, you can tell me. Yi Xian smiled and said, as long as no one disturbs me. Li Mubai smiled slightly, no one will disturb you. Yi Xian nodded. He directly took out a table and placed it by the river, and then he started to draw. A talisman to protect the soul. If it was any other talisman, then he really wouldn't have much confidence. For example, if he wanted to draw a fire-type talisman, then he must be proficient in the fire element. But now, he was only proficient in space and the soul. Yi Xian started to draw. Even though he'd succeeded once, he still didn't dare be careless and was still careful. Because he couldn't afford to make even the slightest mistake when drawing a 7-colored talisman. Just like that, around 6 hours later, 7 rays of light suddenly shot into the sky in front of Yi Xian. Meanwhile, Li Mubai appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian opened his palm, and a 7-colored talisman appeared in front of Li Mubai. Li Mubai gazed at the talisman in his hand and nodded slightly, thank you. Yi Xian smiled, Senior, the talisman has been drawn, so I'll be taking my leave. As soon as he finished speaking, he cupped his fists and intended to leave. Meanwhile, Li Mubai suddenly said, wait. Yi Xian turned around to look at Li Mubai, Senior? Li Mubai smiled, I can't keep you busy. As he spoke, he opened his palm, and a fist-sized violet seal appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled, Senior, what's this? Li Mubai said, the Void Spirit Seal contains Void Spirit energy. If you activate this seal, you can use it to forcefully improve your cultivation. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he was slightly excited. That's a great treasure. I've repaired the book world. In the future, I can use the book world to suppress the cultivation of others, and then use the Void Spirit Seal to improve my cultivation. That's simply too awesome. Meanwhile, Li Mubai said, however, this is an external object in the end. So, there's still a gap between your cultivation and that of a true expert. Moreover, it consumes a lot of energy, so you have to be careful when using it. Yi Xian nodded, I understand. Meanwhile, Li Mubai said, your 7-colored talisman is much more precious than mine, so I owe you a favor. However, I can't leave the city. Besides that, I won't refuse anything within my ability. Yi Xian thought for a moment and nodded, thank you. Li Mubai smiled lightly, there's one more thing that might be related to you. Yi Xian was a little curious, what is it? Li Mubai looked at Yi Xian, it's about the Shura Hell. As far as I know, your relationship with the Shura Empress isn't simple. Yi Xian smiled, I'm her brother. Li Mubai was slightly startled, and then he shook his head and smiled, interesting. Yi Xian said, Senior, you don't believe me? Li Mubai shook his head, I believe you. Then he looked at Yi Xian, that day, I felt the aura of the Emperor of the Dead. I think his seal is about to be removed. And it's absolutely impossible for him to remove the seal himself. So, if I'm not wrong, someone is helping him in the dark. Yi Xian said solemnly, Senior, you mean someone is secretly planning all of this? Li Mubai nodded, it should be. Moreover, it's not a small force. And once the Emperor of the Dead comes out, he will definitely fight with the Shura Empress. The Shura Empress is very powerful. Even the Emperor of the Dead will find it hard to kill her. However, if someone else intervenes, it'll be hard to predict. Yi Xian was silent. Actually, he had thought of this problem before. If Yi Ling and the Emperor of the Dead fought one-on-one, he definitely wouldn't lose. But what if someone else helped the Emperor of the Dead? At this time, Li Mubai said, also, that Xiao Ta on you, that thing is the key to the Universal Library. There are many people who covet it, but many are watching in the dark. You have to be careful. Yi Xian nodded, thank you for your reminder, senior. Li Mubai smiled, take care. Then he turned around and left. In the same place, Yi Xian was silent for a moment before disappearing at the end of the horizon. In front of a faraway house, Li Mubai looked at the sword light in the horizon and said softly, I'm afraid this world won't be so peaceful anymore. After Yi Xian left the banished Immortal City, he didn't return to Fu Wenzong. Instead, he went to the Worldwide Academy. Seeing Yi Xian's arrival, countless experts from the Worldwide Academy immediately surrounded him. At this time, Lin Xiaoshu appeared in front of Yi Xian. He looked at Yi Xian and asked, what are you doing here? Yi Xian said, I want to see Zhang Wenxiu. Lin Xiaoshu frowned and was about to speak when a voice came from the academy below. Let him come. Lin Xiaoshu glanced at Yi Xian and waved his hand. The surrounding experts from the academy immediately dispersed. Lin Xiaoshu looked at Yi Xian and was about to speak. However, Yi Xian didn't even pay attention to him and disappeared on the spot. Lin Xiaoshu turned around and looked down with a calm expression. No one knew what he was thinking. Down below, Yi Xian arrived at a courtyard, and Zhang Wenxiu was sweeping it. Yi Xian was stunned by this scene. She's sweeping? Meanwhile, Zhang Wenxiu tossed the broom in her hand aside, and then she waved her fair hand. The dust on the ground vanished without a trace. Yi Xian was speechless. Zhang Wenxiu glanced at Yi Xian and said, I heard you become a divine talisman master. Yi Xian nodded, yes. Zhang Wenxiu spoke indifferently, looks like you're not completely useless after all. Yi Xian was speechless. Why is she so vicious? Can't she speak properly? Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, speak. What do you want? Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, Azura hell. Zhang Wenxiu waved her hand, no way. Yi Xian was struck dumb. Then he said, what do you mean? Zhang Wenxiu spoke indifferently, you want me to help the Shura Empress deal with the Emperor of the Dead? Yi Xian nodded, that's what I'm thinking. Zhang Wenxiu sneered, I promised you that I'd help you twice, but I didn't say that I'd risk my life for you. Yi Xian asked, you're afraid of the Emperor of the Dead? Zhang Wenxiu spoke indifferently, don't try to provoke me. I have no enmity with him, so why should I stop him from coming out? Moreover, the Emperor of the Dead didn't do anything wrong. The Shura kingdom is in the wrong. They blindly practiced evil techniques. What an idiot. Yi Xian spoke in a serious tone, Miss Wenxiu, if the Emperor of the Dead comes out, he'll slaughter all living beings. You, Zhang Wenxiu retorted, what does that have to do with me? Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, what if he attacks the Worldwide Academy? Zhang Wenxiu was expressionless, as long as his head isn't caught in a door, he won't do that. Other than you, Yi Xian, no other idiot has dared to touch the Worldwide Academy. I should be more worried about you. Yi Xian, Zhang Wenxiu spoke again, this is the matter of the Azura Hell. I won't interfere. Don't spout nonsense, Yi Xian suddenly said, I'll help you open the Worldwide Library. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian, but didn't say anything. Chapter 906. Zhang Wenxiu sat in front of Yi Xian. She crossed her legs and said with a smile, help me open the world-dimensional bookstore? Yi Xian nodded. How about it in exchange? Zhang Wenxiu shook her head and smiled. Yi Xian, Yi Xian, it seems that I overestimated you. Yi Xian frowned. Soon, he seemed to have thought of something and said in a low voice, you guys don't dare to open the bookstore. At this moment, he understood that if the headmaster and this Zhang Wenxiu made a move, Xiao Ta wouldn't have been able to escape. And why didn't the two of them make a move to stop the World Prison Pagoda? Because they didn't dare. The World Dimensional Bookstore was too tempting. Once the Worldwide Academy opened, it would become the target of everyone. Without the prophet, it would be difficult for a female headmaster to shake the entire fifth dimension. As if knowing what Yi Xian was thinking, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, if that woman led the academy in the past, she could have defended the world-dimensional bookstore. However, after teacher left, that woman wasn't interested in anything. Moreover, the biggest contradiction was that the academy wanted to occupy this bookstore. After teacher left, it was no longer the academy that we were familiar with. Saying this, she shook her head. I have already told teacher that his method wouldn't work. Yi Xian suddenly said, it's not that it wouldn't work, it's that he disappeared. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said softly, I believe that if he was still here, the world would become a better place, right? Zhang Wenxiu said, he can't change people's hearts. Yi Xian said, but, he can change people's hearts. Miss Zhang, tell me, are there more good people or bad people in the academy? Zhang Wenxiu was silent. In the past, many people coveted the prophet's world-dimensional bookstore, but there were also many people who protected it. Yi Xian continued, he didn't do anything wrong. The mistake was that he disappeared. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Why? Are you here to talk about life and reason with me? Yi Xian shook his head. Sorry for disturbing you. With that, he turned around and left. The main reason he came to this place was to hope that Zhang Wenxiu could lend a hand. If this woman was willing to help, Yi Ling's side would have a higher chance of winning. Unfortunately, he had miscalculated. The Worldwide Academy didn't want to open the Worldwide Bookstore at all. Once the Worldwide Academy opens the Worldwide Book Room, with the current strength of the Worldwide Academy, it would be impossible to protect it. Setting oneself on fire. Zhang Wenxiu was very insightful. Right at this moment, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said, how about we make a deal? Yi Xian stopped and looked at Zhang Wenxiu. The latter smiled and said, I can help Shura Empress once, but I won't risk my life. If I really can't resist, I will leave. Yi Xian said, what do I have to pay? Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Draw a 7-colored talisman for me. Drawing talisman again. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Miss Wenxiu, with your strength, do you need this kind of 7-colored talisman? Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, that's because with your current strength, you can't fully display the power of the 7-colored talisman. If there's a chance, I will show you. Yi Xian smiled. What kind of 7-colored talisman do you need? Zhang Wenxiu pointed with his finger and a golden ancient book landed in front of Yi Xian. Open it and turn to the last page. Yi Xian opened the golden ancient book and turned to the last page. On the last page, there were 2 big words, critical realm. Yi Xian was confused. What talisman is this? Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, a type of talisman of strength, it can break through dimensional space. Yi Xian said, dimensional space? Zhang Wenxiu nodded. Yi Xian asked again, double-dimensional space? Zhang Wenxiu looked straight at Yi Xian. It's triple-dimensional space. Yi Xian was shocked. It's that scary? Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, give it to me. That's how scary it is. If it's on you, it's just an ordinary talisman. Yi Xian was speechless. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu said, there's a drawing method in it. Just follow it. What do you think? Yi Xian nodded. Sure. Having said that, he brought out a wooden table, took out some tools, and started drawing. He was not particularly familiar with this kind of breaking realm power. Fortunately, the golden ancient book had detailed the drawing method of this talisman. He just had to follow it. Not far away, Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian calmly. Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at Zhang Wenxiu. Miss Zhang, if my performance is too monstrous, will you do what Chen Tian did and get rid of me? Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, that's useless. Yi Xian gave Zhang Wenxiu a thumbs up. Miss Wenxiu, I admire you. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and draw. Yi Xian smiled and started drawing the Breaking Realm talisman. During the drawing process, Yi Xian's expression became serious. The power of this critical talisman was beyond his expectations. Good stuff. Yi Xian was excited. Although he was drawing it for Zhang Wenxiu, he had already memorized the drawing method. In the future, as long as he had enough secret crystals, he could draw as many talismans as he wanted. About 4 hours later, 7 colorful light beams suddenly shot up from the academy. At this time, Zhang Wenxiu appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian pointed with his finger and the 7-colored critical talisman landed in front of Zhang Wenxiu. Zhang Wenxiu looked at the talisman in her hand and nodded slightly. Not bad. Then, she looked at Yi Xian. Let's go. If anything happens in the future, I'll lend a hand. Yi Xian nodded and passed the golden ancient book to Zhang Wenxiu. Miss Wenxiu, I'm returning this to you. Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, you've already memorized it. What's the use of me keeping it? Yi Xian immediately kept the golden ancient book and gave a fist salute. Thank you, Miss Wenxiu. Miss Wenxiu, we'll meet again. After that, he turned around and disappeared into the horizon. His speed was unbelievably fast. At this time, Lin Xiaoshu appeared. He looked at Zhang Wenxiu. Why? Zhang Wenxiu looked at Lin Xiaoshu. What do you think? Lin Xiaoshu looked at Zhang Wenxiu. With your strength, you can definitely kill him. Zhang Wenxiu sneered. And then? Then get the World Prison Pagoda and open the Universal Library? Lin Xiaoshu said solemnly, can't I? Zhang Wenxiu suddenly said angrily, are you a pig with a human head? Do you think the Tomb Keeper, the crippled girl, and human world Shui are dead people? Lin Xiaoshu said solemnly, other than Shura Empress, they haven't made any moves. Zhang Wenxiu sneered. That's because they're waiting to see who makes the first move. If we make the first move, they definitely won't sit and watch us open the Universal Library. Lin Xiaoshu frowned. Why? Zhang Wenxiu said coldly, because the prophet isn't here anymore. These old farts have reached their limits. If they want to advance again, they can only do it with the Academy's library. However, they're afraid. Firstly, they're afraid of Headmaster. Secondly, they're afraid of the great array of the Academy. Thirdly, they're afraid that they'll become someone else's dowry. If we take the library by force, can you guarantee that these people won't target us? Lin Xiaoshu said solemnly, that thing belongs to the Academy. Zhang Wenxiu looked straight at Lin Xiaoshu. That thing doesn't belong to the Academy. It belongs to Teacher. Since it recognized Yi Xian as its master, it belongs to Yi Xian. Lin Xiaoshu frowned. Wenxiu, why do you keep helping outsiders? Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, strictly speaking, he's not an outsider. He's recognized by Xiao Ta as his master. To some extent, he's a part of the Academy. Also, I can kill him, but after I kill him, can you bear the consequences? And that Shura Empress, she's obviously protecting him. If we kill him, can you guarantee that Shura Empress won't come to the Academy to fight us? Are you going to stop her? Lin Xiaoshu said solemnly, we have the Great Array. Idiot. Zhang Wenxiu suddenly shouted angrily. With the Great Array, no one will dare to touch the Academy. Without the Great Array, the Worldwide Academy won't even last a month. As she said this, she looked coldly at Lin Xiaoshu. Use your pig brain and think about it. Don't just study every day. Don't think about revenge every day. Lin Xiaoshu said in a low voice, he killed many people from the Academy. This matter, Zhang Wenxiu looked at Lin Xiaoshu. In Teacher's words, everything has a cause and effect. Why did this happen? It's because you killed him. This is because you started the cause. If it's beneficial to you, you reason with others, but if it's not beneficial to you, you fight with your fists. Have all the books you've read all these years gone to waste? Lin Xiaoshu's face darkened. Zhang Wenxiu didn't give up. He pointed at Lin Xiaoshu angrily. Lin Xiaoshu, don't think I don't know you. You've reached a bottleneck these years and wanted to use that study to break through. But let me tell you, this matter concerns the survival of the worldwide academy. If you dare to cause trouble for Yi Xian again, I'll kill you first. Remember, teacher is no longer here. The worldwide academy is no longer the invincible academy it used to be. If you don't know how to keep a low profile and bide your time, you'll all die. Lin Xiaoshu was silent. Then, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly slapped him. Boom! Lin Xiaoshu was sent flying out of the courtyard. As soon as he stopped, Zhang Wenxiu suddenly appeared in front of him. She grasped Lin Xiaoshu's throat. If it wasn't for teacher, I'd kill you. I'm warning you one last time. Yi Xian is now a jinx. Don't touch him. If you dare to touch him, I'll kill you. With that, she waved her right hand and threw Lin Xiaoshu away. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Lin Xiaoshu coldly. Get down. Lin Xiaoshu didn't say anything. He turned and left. Then, an old man appeared in front of Zhang Wenxiu. The old man sighed. Wenxiu, you're doing it for his own good, but the way you said it, Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, if he wasn't teacher's student, I'd kill him. How short-sighted. The old man hesitated for a moment before he said, would he feel resentment in his heart? Zhang Wenxiu was expressionless. He wouldn't dare. Then, she looked at the old man. Where is Chen Tian now? The old man said, he went to the fourth dimension. I think he's looking for the woman in the plain dress behind Yi Xian. Don't worry. We've been monitoring his whereabouts. Zhang Wenxiu nodded. If he dares to do anything, kill him. The old man looked at Zhang Wenxiu and said softly, Zhang Wenxiu said calmly, Yi Xian is not lucky to be alive until now. Our academy should have just watched from the sidelines, instead of targeting him and being the first bird to stand out. Now, we only have a single path, and that is to wait and see what happens. Then, she looked up at the sky and said softly, our academy no longer has the power to look down on the heroes of the past. We have to change our mentality. If we're blindly arrogant, we'll be destroyed. P.S. I'm attending Zongheng's annual meeting today. All the gods of Zongheng are here. Who do you want me to do? As long as you give me a monthly ticket, I'm willing to do it. Also, I'm going to print some Sword Realm and Sword Venerable's peripherals. If you follow my public account, you'll have a chance to get them for free. Remember, there's no charge for them. There are signed physical books, engraved lighters, figurines, and mysterious prizes. If you want them, add my public account, Green Phoenix Peak. Just follow me. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.